For centuries, the world has been shrouded in mysteries, enigmatic events that defy explanation, leaving us to question what we truly know. Lost civilizations, unsolved disappearances, and secrets buried deep within ancient lands. From the cryptic silence of long-forgotten ruins to the eerie whispers of the past that continue to haunt the living, there are stories that challenge our understanding of reality. What if the answers to these riddles are not as far out of reach as we think? Join us on a journey through time as we uncover 3 hours of history's most strange and haunting mysteries. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. In the heart of ancient Britannia, amidst the mist and shadows of history, a mystery still lingers. One that has confounded historians, archaeologists, and scholars for centuries. The Ninth Roman Legion, once a formidable force in the Roman Empire, disappeared without a trace. It is as though they were swallowed by the very land they sought to conquer, leaving behind only a trail of speculation and unanswered questions. Imagine, if you will, the dense forests and foggy plains of northern Britain, where the cold, damp air seems to carry the weight of centuries. In the year 117 BC, the Roman Empire stood at the height of its power, and the Ninth Legion was one of its most elite military units. They had marched to the distant corners of the empire, conquering territories with the unrelenting force of Rome's might. But in the year 120 AD, the Ninth Legion found itself far from the bustling streets of Rome, stationed in the windswept expanse of what is now northern England. The Roman presence in Britain was not a peaceful one. The frontier was a volatile and dangerous place, where the indigenous tribes of the land fiercely resisted Roman rule. The Ninth Legion had been sent to quell these uprisings, but as the years passed, their fate began to take a dark turn. By the year 120 AD, the Legion was positioned in a fort near the site of modern-day York, facing increasing pressure from local Celtic tribes. And then, in the blink of an eye, they were gone. The records are sparse. There is no mention in official Roman annals of what happened to the Ninth Legion. No clear explanation has ever surfaced. Some believe the Legion was destroyed in battle by the Celtic tribes. Others suggest that the soldiers were overwhelmed by guerrilla tactics and ambushed, their legions scattered across the moors. But this explanation raises more questions than it answers. How could such a formidable force simply vanish without any trace? Where are the remains of the soldiers? Why did the Roman Empire, with its meticulous records and careful documentation, not record the loss of an entire legion? One theory, though widely debated, suggests that the Ninth Legion was simply withdrawn from Britain and restationed elsewhere in the empire. Perhaps it was a simple matter of military reorganization. But then why did they leave no word of their departure? Why no official record of such a dramatic relocation? Others delve deeper into the realm of speculation. Some have suggested that the Ninth Legion was lost in a catastrophic event, a disaster so terrible that it could not be recorded by the Romans. Some point to the possibility of an ambush so complete that it wiped out the entire legion, leaving no survivors to tell the tale. But how could a force that had been so well trained, so well equipped, succumb so completely? There are also more unusual theories that have emerged over the years. Some claim that the Ninth Legion was never truly lost, but rather mysteriously disappeared into the annals of history, taken by forces beyond comprehension. Could they have encountered some kind of supernatural event or curse? After all, the Romans were no strangers to myth and legend. Could the Ninth Legion have become the victims of something far darker than any human enemy? Perhaps the wrath of the gods themselves? To this day, no definitive archaeological evidence has been found to conclusively explain the fate of the Ninth Legion. Excavations of the supposed sites where they were stationed have yielded only fragments of Roman pottery, weapons, and the occasional skeleton, but nothing that conclusively ties them to the Lost Legion. There have been no mass graves uncovered, no fortifications showing signs of a great battle. The eerie silence surrounding the disappearance only deepens the mystery. And so the question remains, what happened to the 9th Roman Legion? Were they defeated in battle, lost in a cruel twist of fate? Or did they simply fade into the fog of history? As time moves forward, the mystery only grows. It's a tale of soldiers who marched into the wilderness, never to return, leaving behind only the faintest trace of their existence. Could there still be something hidden, waiting to be discovered, deep beneath the earth? Or is it that the truth of their fate was simply lost to time? Perhaps one day, an answer will emerge from the shadows of history. But until then, the fate of the 9th Roman Legion remains one of history's most haunting and unanswered mysteries. As the last echoes of the 9th Roman Legion fade into history, another unsettling mystery emerges from the pages of time, a phenomenon so strange, so inexplicable, that it left the people of New England trembling with fear and confusion. On May 19, 1780, a day that should have been bathed in the warmth of spring sunlight, the skies darkened. It wasn't the usual overcast of a stormy day, but something far more bizarre. A thick, impenetrable darkness settled over the land, so intense that lamps were lit in the middle of the day, and people went to bed early, unsure of what to make of the unnatural twilight. It became known as the Dark Day. Imagine standing in the heart of New England, a region accustomed to the rhythm of the seasons. The sun had risen, but by midday, an eerie gloom spread across the landscape. By 2 p.m., it was as dark as midnight. The sun disappeared entirely behind a veil, and the sky took on a strange yellowish hue. It was not a typical eclipse. The sun could still be seen faintly, but it was dimmed as if obscured by some vast, unseen force. Birds, confused by the sudden darkness, returned to their nests, and livestock, unsettled by the loss of daylight, began to move in frantic, erratic patterns. The people of Connecticut, Massachusetts, and other New England colonies found themselves gripped by a growing sense of dread. No one knew what was happening, and no one could explain it. Panic spread. Some believed the end of the world was nigh. Others feared that some divine wrath was descending upon them. Church bells rang in desperation, and prayers echoed in the streets, as townsfolk scrambled for answers in a moment where even the most rational minds were at a loss. By the evening, the sky remained unusually dark, and the oppressive gloom persisted until midnight. Yet, as inexplicably as it had arrived, the darkness began to lift. The moon appeared, and the stars glimmered faintly in the night sky. It was as if nature had briefly surrendered to some cosmic force before slowly returning to its natural course. The world had been altered in a matter of hours. But how? And why? As with many mysterious events throughout history, early explanations ranged from the logical to the supernatural. The first theory suggested that the darkness was caused by a vast forest fire, perhaps in the far-off regions of Canada or the northeastern United States. The thick smoke from these fires could have spread across the skies, blocking out the sun. Yet there was no recorded evidence of any fires in the area, and smoke that could cause such a darkness would have had to have been extraordinary, covering hundreds of miles in all directions. Another theory, rooted in natural phenomena, pointed to a rare and unusual atmospheric event. Some suggested a massive cloud of volcanic ash from distant eruptions, perhaps from as far away as Iceland or the Caribbean. The idea was that particles in the atmosphere could scatter sunlight, creating a perpetual twilight effect. But no volcanic activity was recorded that could account for such a darkening on that scale. Yet, these mainstream theories didn't satisfy everyone. The absence of an obvious source for the darkness and the sudden, unexplained nature of the event led some to propose more fringe explanations. Was it a result of some unprecedented meteorological event? A freak combination of weather conditions never before witnessed? Could it have been a rare, undetected eclipse, though such an event would not typically last for hours and would have been more predictable? Some even speculated that it might have been the result of a large, unknown celestial body moving through the solar system, its shadow casting a dark pall over the Earth. But then there were those who, even in the rational age of the late 18th century, looked for explanations beyond the natural world. The sudden darkness, they argued, could have been a sign, a warning from the divine, or a harbinger of something far more ominous. Was it some sort of supernatural omen, a portent of doom? Could it have been a manifestation of an ancient curse? Perhaps something deeply connected to the celestial or cosmic forces that humans could not comprehend or control. Another theory emerged much later, during the 19th and 20th centuries, suggesting that the event was not a natural disaster at all, but rather a mass psychogenic phenomenon, where large groups of people, all experiencing the same event, allowed their fears and imaginations to fuel the sense of dread. In this theory, the dark day was more a product of collective anxiety than an actual atmospheric or astronomical event. But could such a large-scale, uniform experience really be explained by a psychological response alone? Even today, the mystery of the dark day remains unresolved. Researchers continue to explore the possibility of rare atmospheric phenomena, from the eruption of volcanoes to the complex interactions between weather patterns, dust, and light. Yet, none of the proposed explanations seem to fully capture the eerie, unsettling nature of that day. Why was the darkness so pervasive, and why did it occur in such a narrow window of time? Was it a natural event, the likes of which we have yet to understand fully? Or was it something more? An anomaly in the fabric of time and space, a momentary lapse in the regular patterns of nature, leaving behind only questions and lingering uncertainty. Perhaps there are still clues to be found, buried in records or hidden in the layers of time. The dark day of 1780 may yet hold secrets that science has yet to uncover. Until then, it remains one of history's most haunting and inexplicable mysteries, an event that still casts a shadow over our understanding of the natural world. What happened that day, and what other hidden forces might still be waiting to reveal themselves in the pages of history? As the eerie darkness of New England's dark day fades into the past, another haunting chapter of history unfolds, one that takes us into the icy, unforgiving expanse of the Arctic. It's a place where the cold, biting winds seem to swallow both sound and hope, where the land itself seems to conspire against the explorers who dare to tread upon it. This is the story of the lost Franklin expedition, a tale of ambition, tragedy, and the eerie silence that has lingered over the fate of its crew for over 170 years. In the mid-19th century, the British Empire, at the height of its global power, sought to map the elusive Northwest Passage, an Arctic sea route that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, potentially unlocking vast new trade routes. Led by Sir John Franklin, an experienced explorer, the expedition set out in 1845 with two ships, the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror, and a crew of 129 men. The mission was ambitious, but it was also a hopeful endeavor in an age of discovery and maritime exploration. It was supposed to be a feat of science and a triumph of human resilience in the face of nature's harshest conditions. But what was meant to be an expedition of triumph soon became one of the greatest mysteries in the annals of exploration. Almost immediately, things began to go wrong. The ships were trapped in the ice off King William Island in the Canadian Arctic archipelago. What followed was a slow descent into desperation. The crew, once confident in their abilities, found themselves stranded in one of the most inhospitable regions on Earth. Despite their best efforts to escape the ice, they were stuck, unable to move forward and unable to retreat. By 1848, 3 years after the expedition set sail, a rescue mission was mounted. But by then, it was already too late. There was no sign of Franklin or his crew. No survivors, no wreckage, and no explanation. The ships had vanished, and the Arctic landscape had swallowed the men whole, leaving behind only fragments of their story, leaving the world to wonder what had truly happened. The mystery of the Franklin expedition remained unsolved for decades. Search parties ventured into the icy wasteland, recovering skeletal remains and pieces of equipment. But the larger questions: what had caused the expedition's failure? How had the crew perished? Remained as elusive as ever. There were a few facts that emerged. Over the years, several bones were found scattered across the tundra, some of them bearing evidence of the severe hardships the men endured. For example, some showed signs of scurvy, a disease caused by a lack of vitamin C, suggesting that the crew's diet had deteriorated during their years trapped in the ice. Others showed signs of cannibalism, further deepening the sense of horror surrounding their fate. What had driven men, once proud and resolute, to such desperate measures? In addition to the skeletal remains, scattered remnants of the ships, Erebus and Terror, were discovered in the 20th and 21st centuries, providing some insight into their final moments. The wreckage revealed the ship's excellent construction, strong, well-equipped vessels that should have withstood the Arctic conditions. Yet, despite their resilience, the crews of these ships were undone by the merciless environment they found themselves in. Could it have been that the ships were poorly equipped for the extreme conditions? Or were there other factors at play? Miscalculations, bad weather, or even sabotage? Speculation swirled around what might have happened after the ships became icebound. Some believed that Franklin and his men had attempted to march south, seeking rescue or refuge in warmer climes. Others suggested that they had died in the frozen wilderness, trapped in the endless snow and ice, waiting for rescue that never came. There were even theories that they had attempted to walk back to civilization across vast stretches of Arctic terrain, only to succumb to the elements and starvation. But it wasn't until 2014 that the wrecks of the Erebus and Terror were finally located, nearly 170 years after they had been lost. The discovery of the Erebus in particular seemed to offer some answers, but the wreck itself raised as many questions as it answered. What had really happened to the men aboard these vessels? Were they truly abandoned to die in the cold, or had they made a final, desperate attempt to survive on their own? And why had Franklin and his men not made it to the rescue point they had planned? In the years since the discovery, new theories have emerged. Some experts believe that the ship's design may have contributed to their downfall, with their iron hulls prone to buckling under the pressure of shifting ice. Others point to the possibility that Franklin's crew may have misjudged the severity of the Arctic's challenges, failing to anticipate how quickly the ice would close in around them, trapping them without hope of escape. Could human error have played a significant role in the tragedy? Yet, there is still the question that no one has answered. What exactly caused the deaths of Franklin and his men? Theories abound. Some suggest that they succumbed to disease, while others believe that food poisoning from tainted provisions may have played a role. The discovery of items like tins of food sealed with lead solder has led some researchers to speculate that lead poisoning might have been a contributing factor, poisoning the men's minds and bodies, hastening their demise. Could their deaths have been caused by an insidious, invisible force like lead, which slowly killed them from within? Still, with the passage of time, much of the mystery remains. Despite the recovery of some of the men's remains and the discovery of the ships, The full story of the Franklin expedition's demise remains hidden beneath layers of snow and ice. What truly happened to Franklin and his men? Were they victims of nature's cruelty, their fates sealed by the harshest elements on Earth? Or were there other, more complex forces at play? Human error, disease, or even something far more mysterious? Perhaps, deep within the frozen Arctic wilderness, more answers lie buried, waiting to be uncovered. For now, the lost Franklin expedition remains a haunting enigma, a story that continues to captivate and perplex, reminding us that some of history's most haunting mysteries are still waiting to be solved. As the tale of Franklin's ill-fated expedition fades into the cold, harsh winds of the Arctic, we now turn to a mystery that unfolded in the heart of small-town America. One that blends fear, paranoia, and an eerie sense of being watched. This story begins in 1944, in the quiet town of Mattoon, Illinois, a place where nothing out of the ordinary seemed to ever happen. Yet, in the space of just a few weeks, Mattoon was thrust into a chilling episode of terror that has never been fully explained. It was late summer, and the air in Mattoon was thick with the warmth of the season. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long golden shadows over the sleepy streets. It seemed like any other peaceful evening, until reports began to surface of a strange, sinister figure lurking in the shadows. People described an unknown assailant, a phantom who would creep through neighborhoods at night, releasing a noxious, pungent gas that left victims struggling to breathe, their skin burning, their minds clouded in confusion. It started on the night of August 31st, 1944, when a woman reported that she had been overcome by a strange odor in her home, a heavy, sweetish scent that made her dizzy and nauseous. She was certain that something had happened. She wasn't simply ill or imagining things. Soon, more people began to report similar symptoms: a thick chemical smell in the air, headaches, burning throats, and a strange sensation of being paralyzed, as though their very breath was being stolen away. There were even reports of people feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, as though they were being hunted or watched. Word spread quickly through the town, and soon others began to share their experiences. Mattoon was plunged into a state of fear and uncertainty. Was it some sort of gas attack? Had the town been targeted by an enemy, perhaps even a foreign adversary during the height of World War II? The authorities were flooded with reports, yet no one could pinpoint the source of the gas or even identify the supposed attacker. The victims reported seeing nothing, only feeling the effects of the gas, followed by an intense sense of panic. The local police were baffled. No one had seen anyone suspicious near the houses where the gas attacks took place. No footprints, no fingerprints, no traces of the gas itself. And yet people kept falling ill, each describing the same symptoms: dizziness, nausea, a sense of paralysis. The panic spread like wildfire, and the town descended into a fevered frenzy of fear and speculation. At first, some believed it was an isolated incident, maybe a chemical leak, or perhaps a hoax, but the attacks continued. Some victims even claimed to have seen a shadowy figure lurking in the dark, a person dressed in black moving swiftly through alleyways and darkened streets. The press dubbed this figure the Mad Gasser of Mattoon, and the mystery was born. Was there a deranged person targeting random homes? Or was something far more sinister at work, an unseen force creeping through the town, unseen but undeniably present? Theories began to emerge. Some speculated that the gas was a type of chemical weapon, perhaps used by the government or an enemy force. But no such weapon was ever found. Others wondered if the Mad Gasser was simply a disturbed individual, perhaps someone using a homemade device to release the gas and terrorize the townspeople. But how could one person cause so much chaos, so many reports, and so many symptoms? There was no pattern to the attacks, no clear motive, no clear target. no trace of the gas remained after the attacks, and no forensic evidence was found to explain its origin. Some investigators posited a more psychological explanation: mass hysteria. Could the fear of an unseen attacker have spread so quickly that the people of Mattoon had convinced themselves they were victims of something more terrifying than it truly was? The symptoms, the dizziness, the burning sensations, could they have been a result of collective anxiety, combined with the power of suggestion? Perhaps people were simply reacting to the fear in the air, a fear fueled by rumors, media reports, and growing paranoia. Despite the increasing attention, the attacks slowed as suddenly as they had started. By mid-September, just weeks after the first reported incident, they ceased entirely. The Mad Gasser was never caught, and no evidence ever came to light to prove that a single person was responsible. The mysterious gas remained just that: mysterious. Some concluded that the whole event was the product of mass hysteria, a strange but fascinating episode of collective fear. Others remained convinced that an unknown assailant had indeed been stalking the town, leaving no trace of their actions. Over the years, the Mad Gasser case has remained unsolved, a dark chapter in the history of small-town America. No new attacks have ever been reported in Mattoon, and the mystery has gradually faded from public consciousness. But the question lingers: what truly happened in those summer weeks of 1944? Was it the work of a lone individual, a madman hiding in the shadows? Or was something far more insidious at play? Was it the mind that created the terror, or was there indeed a gas that could not be traced, a weapon that left no evidence behind? As time moves on, new theories continue to surface, but none provide a definitive answer. Was it a single man causing havoc in the night, or something much larger? A psychological phenomenon that consumed the minds of an entire community? And if there was a person behind it all, what was their motive? What drove them to commit such strange and frightening acts? The case of the Mad Gasser of Mattoon remains one of history's great unsolved mysteries, a haunting, baffling episode that leaves us wondering if the truth was simply hidden too well, or if, perhaps, it is the mystery itself that holds the key to understanding what really happened. Could there still be a trace of the Mad Gasser's legacy left in the town? Or is the fear and the fascination nothing more than a ghost of the past, forever shrouded in uncertainty? As the mysterious events of the Mad Gasser of Mattoon fade into the shadowy corners of history, another strange and perplexing chapter awaits, a story so bizarre that it almost seems to belong to the realm of folklore. But it is not a myth or a tale of imagination. This is a real event, one that occurred in 1876 in the rolling hills of Kentucky, a place where the tranquil beauty of rural life was suddenly shattered by a phenomenon no one could explain. In the small town of Olympia, Kentucky, on March 3, 1876, the unthinkable occurred. Picture the quiet, picturesque landscape where life moved at a slow, steady pace, and the day began as any other. The sun hung high in the sky, casting its gentle light over the countryside. It was a peaceful afternoon, and the local residents went about their daily routines, unaware that they were about to witness something that would haunt their memories for years to come. Suddenly, the calm was broken by an alarming sight. A strange, grisly shower began to fall from the sky. It wasn't rain, and it wasn't hail. No, it was meat. Chunks of meat. Some described as resembling beef, others more like mutton, all falling from the heavens in large, slimy pieces. The residents, shocked and bewildered, watched in stunned silence as these strange, fleshy objects rained down, scattering across the ground. Some even ran to collect the meat, stunned by the sight, yet unsure of what they were witnessing. The pieces ranged in size, some small enough to be handled by hand, others large enough to cover the ground in chunks. What made the event even more unsettling was the fact that there were no visible signs of any aircraft or any source that could explain the falling meat. There were no storms or unusual weather conditions that could account for such an occurrence. The residents, initially shocked, began to question what had happened. Had something truly inexplicable occurred, or was there a more logical explanation? The local paper, the Daily Kentucky New Era, reported the event in its March 4, 1876 edition, describing how, within a few minutes, the air was filled with the grotesque spectacle of meat falling from the sky. The writer, equally dumbfounded, noted that some pieces of the meat appeared to be fresh, while others had the appearance of being preserved. The pieces were described as having an odd, unpleasant smell, yet no one could say for certain what kind of meat it was. Some who saw it speculated that it was beef or mutton, while others claimed it was something entirely different. At first, a plausible explanation emerged. Some believed that vultures, in a bizarre turn of fate, had vomited the meat into the air. Vultures, known for their scavenging behavior, were believed to have been sick or agitated and had expelled their partially digested meals. However, this theory was quickly dismissed. For one, vultures do not typically vomit entire pieces of meat like the ones reported in the shower. Furthermore, it seemed highly unlikely that a flock of vultures would release such an amount of meat, let alone across a broad area, as the town's residents noted that the meat had fallen over a wide expanse. As the news spread, others began to offer more outlandish explanations. Some speculated that the event was a result of a chemical or biological experiment gone wrong, with some linking it to secret government experiments or meteorological phenomena. Could this have been a result of a weather anomaly, like a tornado or a strong updraft, lifting dead animals into the air and scattering them across the landscape? But the strange thing about the Kentucky meat shower was its sudden, specific, and localized nature. Only Olympia had witnessed it, and no other towns in the area experienced a similar event. A more fringe theory suggested that the meat was somehow linked to a more supernatural force. Some believed it was an omen, a warning, or even a sign of divine intervention. Some thought the event might have been the result of some kind of curse, while others entertained the possibility of it being an otherworldly occurrence, perhaps even the result of extraterrestrial activity. After all, unexplained phenomena like this have often fueled such wild speculations, and the absence of a clear answer seemed to leave the door wide open for such possibilities. Despite all the theories, no definitive explanation has ever surfaced. Even in modern times, the incident remains a point of fascination, a bizarre mystery that stumps scientists and historians alike. For decades, researchers have tried to piece together what might have happened, but the event still lacks a clear, satisfactory explanation. Many suggest that the meat might have been the result of a phenomenon called meteorological meat rain, a rare and still not fully understood occurrence where animals or animal parts are sucked into the air by powerful updrafts or tornadoes and then deposited over a wide area. This would explain the scattered nature of the meat and its seemingly random appearance. But even this theory falls short of explaining everything. If the meat did come from the sky, what was its origin? Where did it come from? Why was it so fresh, and why did it have the strange texture that many witnesses described? And why was the event so limited to that particular area? Why did it happen only once, never to be replicated or explained? Over the years, some skeptics have suggested that the Kentucky meat shower could have been a hoax, a local prank, or an exaggeration. Could it have been the work of someone with a twisted sense of humor? The truth is, no one can say for sure. The reports from 1876 remain the only substantial evidence of the event, and no further instances of similar phenomena have been recorded. As strange as it may seem, the Great Kentucky Meat Shower remains a mystery, one that challenges our understanding of the natural world. Could there still be an explanation waiting to be uncovered, buried within the realms of science or history? Or are we, perhaps, witnessing a phenomenon so rare, so bizarre, that it is beyond our comprehension? What caused the rain of meat, and why did it fall upon this small town? These questions continue to echo through time, lingering in the air like the smell of that strange, fetid shower. Perhaps the mystery will remain unsolved, forever a haunting enigma in the annals of history. As we leave behind the strange and unsettling Kentucky meat shower, we turn our focus to another mystery, a story that carries with it the haunting silence of the sea, a place where the forces of nature collide with human fragility. This is the case of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, where in 1900, 3 lighthouse keepers vanished without a trace, leaving behind only eerie clues and unanswered questions. The Flannan Isles lie off the western coast of Scotland, a remote group of islands shrouded by mist and buffeted by relentless winds. They are rugged and desolate, rising steeply from the cold waters of the Atlantic. At the heart of these islands stands the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, a solitary tower that once guided ships safely through treacherous waters. The lighthouse, constructed in 1899, was designed to warn passing vessels of the hazardous rocks that lurked just beneath the surface of the waves. But it was not only the rocky shoreline that was dangerous, it was the island itself, isolated and untamed, a place where nature seemed to impose its will on those who dared to make a living there. The lighthouse keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur, were responsible for maintaining the light and ensuring that it remained visible to passing ships, no matter the weather. It was a job that required both vigilance and solitude, as the lighthouse stood alone on the highest point of the island, far from the nearest town. The men were accustomed to the isolation, the long hours of darkness, and the unyielding winds that howled across the rocky terrain. But even they could not have known that their final days would be marked by a sudden, inexplicable disappearance that would leave the world grasping for answers. On December 15, 1900, a routine supply ship, the Arctic, was scheduled to deliver provisions to the lighthouse. When it arrived at the Flannan Isles, however, it was met with a chilling sight. No one was there to greet the crew. The lighthouse itself was eerily silent, and the light was not burning. The men aboard the Arctic called out, but there was no response. Concerned, they made their way up to the lighthouse, only to find the doors locked and no sign of the 3 keepers. The beds inside were neatly made, suggesting that the men had not been caught in a rush or panic. The kitchen stove was cold, and the logbook, usually kept meticulously by the keepers, was missing several entries. What the crew of the Arctic found was both puzzling and unsettling. The last entries in the logbook, written just a few days before, indicated that all was well at the lighthouse. The keepers had reported calm seas and no unusual weather. But when the supply ship arrived, it was as though the men had simply vanished into thin air. The light was extinguished, the keepers were gone, and there were no signs of struggle or foul play. Their disappearance was complete. In the days that followed, an investigation was launched, but it yielded few answers. The weather around the time of the disappearance had been stormy, with high winds and heavy rain, but nothing extreme enough to explain the sudden vanishing of 3 experienced men. Some speculated that the men had been swept into the sea during a violent storm, but there were no bodies, no debris, and no trace of the men in the water. The lighthouse was undisturbed, its equipment intact, its surroundings untouched. The island itself, though wild and remote, showed no signs of an accident. One possible explanation put forward was that the men had gone to check on a supply or make repairs during the storm, perhaps in an effort to secure the lighthouse during rough weather. But if this was the case, why did they not return? Why were there no traces of their movements, no signs that they had even left the lighthouse? And why, most unsettling of all, was the lighthouse light extinguished at a time when it was most needed? theories began to emerge, some more plausible than others. The weather had certainly been a factor, and it was possible that the men had been caught in the storm while attempting to carry out their duties. But the idea that the lighthouse keepers had met with an accident or misfortune did not fully explain the strange lack of evidence. There were no bodies recovered from the sea, and no sign of the men on the island. The theory that the keepers had been blown away by the wind or drowned in the rough seas seemed unlikely, given the lack of any visible trace. Some speculated that there had been a tragic, unforeseen mishap. A rope snapped, a fall, or an unexpected slip on the rocky terrain that left the men unable to help each other. But again, no remains were found, and no definitive proof of such an accident emerged. Others entertained more mysterious explanations. Could the men have been the victims of some kind of supernatural event? In a place as isolated and wild as the Flannan Isles, with its harsh winds and isolation, could there have been something more at play? Some unexplained force that caused the men to vanish? Local legends suggested that the islands were cursed, and the lighthouse itself had long been a place shrouded in myth. Some whispered that the keepers had encountered a mysterious force that had claimed their lives, perhaps the restless spirits of those who had perished in these waters before them. Could it have been a deliberate act, a psychological breakdown, or even a voluntary disappearance? Perhaps the men had decided to abandon their posts, choosing to leave behind the lighthouse and its isolation for a life elsewhere. But such a theory seems highly unlikely, given the nature of their work and the fact that they had been well prepared for their isolation. The most plausible explanation, according to many investigators, is that the men were caught in a freak accident, the details of which will never be known. Perhaps one of them had fallen into the sea, and in a desperate attempt to save him, the others were swept away in the storm. Yet the absence of bodies, the undisturbed state of the lighthouse, and the lack of any physical evidence leaves the story open to speculation. To this day, the disappearance of the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers remains one of the most haunting maritime mysteries in history. What truly happened to Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur? Were they claimed by nature, or was there something else, something darker, that took them from the world? The lighthouse stands to this day, a silent sentinel on the Flannan Isles, guarding its secrets. And the mystery of the men who vanished without a trace continues to haunt those who seek to uncover the truth. As we leave behind the desolate silence of the Flannan Isles lighthouse, we shift our focus to another haunting event that unfolds in the heart of Europe, a place not of isolation, but of crowded streets, markets, and public squares. Yet it was here, in the city of Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, that a strange and terrifying phenomenon unfolded in 1518. It was an event that left both the citizens and historians alike grappling with its strange and inexplicable nature. This is the story of the Dancing Plague of 1518, a bizarre and unnerving chapter in human history that has never fully been explained. Strasbourg, located on the banks of the Rhine River, was a city bustling with life in the 16th century. The medieval streets were lined with market stalls, the scent of freshly baked bread and livestock filling the air. People went about their daily lives, but as summer wore on in 1518, an unsettling occurrence began to disrupt the peaceful flow of life. It started innocently enough, as one woman, Frau Trophea, stepped into the streets and began dancing uncontrollably. She didn't stop. Her movements were erratic and frenzied, and soon she was joined by others who seemed to be pulled into the same strange compulsion. At first, this might have seemed like an isolated incident, but within days, the number of dancers began to grow. It wasn't long before dozens of people were caught up in the same frenzied dance. Witnesses describe the dancers as being possessed by some unseen force, their bodies convulsing and jerking uncontrollably. The frantic movement was so intense that some dancers reportedly collapsed from exhaustion while others continued without respite. For days, the people danced on, unable to stop. The authorities, understandably alarmed, sought to understand what was happening. Local physicians, baffled by the spectacle, could offer no explanation. The city's mayor and officials feared that it was some kind of divine punishment or a curse, and perhaps the most disturbing part was the sheer relentlessness of it all. People danced not for joy, but for some unknown, desperate compulsion. As days turned to weeks, the dance did not subside. It only intensified. By mid-July, the situation had become so dire that city leaders decided to take action. They thought that the only way to stop the madness was to encourage more dancing. They even arranged for a stage and musicians to keep the dancers moving, hoping that by indulging the compulsion, the frenzy would subside. Yet this decision only worsened the situation. More and more people joined in, and the number of victims grew. Soon, reports tell us that dozens were affected, and some even succumbed to exhaustion, heart attacks, or strokes. By the time the dancing stopped in early September, the event had lasted for over 2 months. It is estimated that as many as 400 people were affected by the mysterious affliction. At least 15 people died from exhaustion, heart failure, or other related causes. But the question remained, what could have caused this strange and uncontrollable behavior? Historical accounts offer little clarity on the specifics of the event. Some have suggested that the dancers were suffering from mass hysteria, a kind of psychological contagion where the stress and pressure of life, perhaps worsened by famine, disease, and the harsh conditions of 16th century Europe, led to a form of collective madness. In this theory, the dancers were victims of their own fear and anxiety, unable to stop once they began. But this does not fully explain the severity of the phenomenon or why it continued for so long. Other theories point to ergot poisoning, a condition caused by consuming rye bread infected with a particular fungus, Claviceps purpurea. This fungus produces a hallucinogenic substance similar to LSD, which can cause convulsions, hallucinations, and an uncontrollable urge to move. If the people of Strasbourg had been suffering from ergot poisoning, this could explain the bizarre behavior of the dancers, as well as the physical symptoms: exhaustion, collapse, and death. However, this theory too falls short. While ergot poisoning could indeed cause such symptoms, it doesn't explain why the event occurred so suddenly, nor why it affected so many people in such a specific location. If ergot poisoning was the cause, why didn't other towns, where similar conditions existed, experience the same kind of outbreak? Then, there are those who have speculated that the event could have been the result of a much more supernatural cause, some kind of curse or possession. Given the deeply religious context of the time, it's not surprising that many people would have thought of the dancing as a form of divine punishment. Was it the wrath of God? A divine judgment for some unknown sin? Or, more disturbingly, could it have been some sort of demonic influence, as suggested by local priests who were involved in trying to exorcise the dancers? In this context, the event becomes less of a medical mystery and more of a reflection of the fears and anxieties of the time. As with many strange historical events, the Dancing Plague of 1518 has also been viewed through a more psychological lens. Could the collective trauma of the time, including widespread disease, famine, and political instability, have led to a form of psychogenic movement disorder? Could the power of suggestion, the overwhelming fear of the unknown, have created a mass delusion that spiraled out of control? Despite numerous attempts to explain it, the true cause of the Dancing Plague remains elusive. Modern historians and researchers continue to delve into the available records, seeking clues or evidence that might shed light on this puzzling incident. Some have suggested that the event was a one-time phenomenon caused by a rare combination of factors, both psychological and environmental. But still, questions linger. Why did it happen when it did? Why in Strasbourg, of all places? Was it really the result of ergot poisoning, mass hysteria, or something else entirely? Could it have been a strange combination of physical, mental, and social factors that pushed people beyond the limits of their endurance? Or was it something even more mysterious? The legacy of the dancing plague of 1518 endures, not just as an isolated event in the annals of history, but as a reminder of the unknown forces that can sometimes seize hold of entire communities, unraveling the fabric of rationality and leaving behind a haunting enigma. What truly drove those people to dance until they could dance no more? Could such a phenomenon occur again today, or was it simply a moment in time, never to be repeated? The answers remain hidden in the echoes of history, waiting to be discovered, or perhaps never to be understood. As we leave behind the frenetic energy of the 1518 dancing plague, we now find ourselves drawn to the remote, desolate expanses of Siberia, a place far removed from the noise of civilization, yet where an event of cataclysmic force would shake the very earth itself. On June 30th, 1908, something occurred that would leave a mark on history, not just in the physical destruction it caused, but in the lingering mystery that has haunted scientists, theorists, and historians ever since. This is the story of the Tunguska Explosion, an event so strange and unexplained that it continues to capture our imagination more than a century later. Imagine, if you will, the vast, untamed wilderness of Siberia, a landscape of dense forests, rolling hills, and marshes stretching far into the horizon, with few human settlements to break the monotony of the natural world. The sky is endless, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. It was here, in the morning light of a June day, that the earth shuddered with an intensity that could be felt hundreds of miles away. On that morning, in the sparsely populated region near the Tunguska River, something extraordinary occurred. A blast so powerful that it flattened trees over an area of more than 2,000 square kilometers, equivalent to the size of a small country. The explosion sent shockwaves across the land, creating a ripple effect that reached as far as Europe and could even be detected by barometers across the globe. Yet, despite its massive scale, there were no immediate casualties reported, and no definitive explanation for what had caused it. The blast left no crater, no obvious source, and no clear culprit. In the wake of the explosion, survivors who lived in the nearby villages spoke of a tremendous fireball in the sky, followed by an ear-splitting boom. Some reported seeing a column of smoke rising into the atmosphere, as if the sky itself had caught fire. For those who were fortunate enough to be far enough away, the event seemed surreal, a distant, unexplained disaster. But for those closer to the epicenter, the destruction was immediate and profound. Trees were uprooted, scorched, and thrown to the ground like matchsticks, leaving a barren, twisted landscape. Yet, remarkably, there were no reports of fatalities. How could such a massive explosion, with the power to flatten entire forests, have left human life unscathed? The mystery deepened as Russian scientists began to investigate the area. Despite the vastness of the destruction, no physical evidence could point to a single cause. There was no impact crater, no traces of a meteor or comet that might have crashed to Earth. The ground itself was scorched, yet there was no sign of conventional explosives or weapons. The trees, though flattened, showed no signs of being struck by a large object. What then could explain the force of the explosion that had ravaged this remote region? The prevailing theory at the time suggested that the explosion was caused by the airburst of a large meteoroid or comet entering the Earth's atmosphere. The object, it was hypothesized, exploded in the atmosphere before reaching the ground, releasing an immense amount of energy. This would explain the widespread destruction, as the shockwave from the explosion would have spread across the forest, knocking down trees and creating the unusual pattern of damage. The absence of a crater made sense in this context, as the explosion had occurred in mid-air, not on the Earth's surface. But while the meteoroid theory remains the most widely accepted explanation, it raises more questions than it answers. For one, why was there no physical evidence of a meteorite or comet, such as fragments or a trail of debris? Many scientists have pointed out that a large enough object to cause such a blast would have left at least some trace of its presence. Yet, despite extensive searches, no meteorite pieces were found in the Tunguska region. This has led some researchers to propose alternative theories, some more conventional, others more speculative. One theory posits that the explosion was caused by the detonation of a natural gas pocket, similar to the type of underground explosions that have been observed in other parts of the world. But again, this fails to explain the fireball seen in the sky, or the absence of any visible cause on the ground. Another suggestion is that the blast was the result of a massive volcanic eruption, despite there being no evidence of volcanic activity in the region at the time. Could it be that a previously unknown geological phenomenon occurred that day? Something outside the realm of current scientific understanding? In more speculative circles, there are those who have proposed even more fantastical theories. Some have suggested that the explosion was caused by a secret weapon, perhaps one developed by early 20th century military powers. Given the political climate of the time, with the rise of new technologies and the escalating tensions between world powers, could it be that the Tunguska explosion was the result of an experiment gone wrong? This theory, however, is largely dismissed by mainstream scientists, who argue that the scale of the event would have left clear signs of human involvement, which have not been found. Other, even more fringe theories involve the possibility that the explosion was caused by a weapon from the sky, a force that is not of this Earth. Could the Tunguska event have been the result of an extraterrestrial or interdimensional incident? Some suggest that the explosion could have been a cosmic event, a form of energy released by some unknown cosmic force, or even a collision with another universe. While such ideas remain firmly in the realm of speculation, they underscore the profound mystery that still surrounds the event. Despite over a century of investigation, the Tunguska explosion remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of modern science. Was it truly a meteoroid or comet that exploded in the atmosphere, or is there something else at play? Could it have been a natural phenomenon, an event that we are simply not equipped to understand? Or, as some have suggested, could it have been something far stranger, an event from the far reaches of space, or even the product of a hidden experiment, one that we are not meant to fully comprehend? The truth is, we may never know for certain what happened that day in Siberia. The evidence or lack thereof continues to elude researchers, and the mystery endures. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the Tunguska event is not just the devastation it caused, but the lingering sense that there is something more to be uncovered. Is there a clue hidden in the trees that have been bent but not broken, or in the stillness of the land that remains untouched? The Tunguska explosion might just be the tip of a far larger mystery, a cosmic puzzle that, like so many others in history, may remain unsolved for generations to come. As we move away from the cosmic mystery of the Tunguska explosion, we now find ourselves in the high desert of northern New Mexico, a place known for its vast, open skies, rugged landscapes, and the ancient pulse of Native American culture. It is a place that seems timeless, where the air is thin and the winds whisper across the arid plains. But in this quiet, remote corner of the world, there is a sound, a strange, persistent hum that has puzzled and disturbed residents and visitors alike for decades. This is the mystery of the Taos Hum, a low-frequency sound that some people in the town of Taos have reported hearing since the early 1990s. The hum is unlike anything easily explained, an almost imperceptible sound that seems to be felt as much as it is heard. It has been described as a constant, droning noise that never seems to go away, an eerie hum that rises and falls in intensity but never truly fades. Imagine the scene, a peaceful evening in the small town of Taos, nestled in the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, with the sun setting behind the jagged peaks. The town itself is quiet, a place where the bustle of daily life slows to a relaxed rhythm. And yet, for some of its residents, a persistent noise lingers in the background, an unsettling sound that refuses to be ignored. This hum is not easily heard by everyone. Only a small fraction of the population, some estimates suggest about 2% of people, can hear it at all. But for those who do, it is an ever-present companion, one that gnaws at the edges of their consciousness. The origins of the Taos hum remain a mystery. Local residents have described it as a humming, droning, or buzzing sound, often compared to the noise of a large, idling diesel engine or the faint hum of machinery. Some describe it as having a vibrational quality, something that seems to permeate the air itself. In some accounts, the hum is felt in the chest, as though it reverberates deep within the body. It has been said to occur at all hours of the day, though it seems to be most pronounced during the night, when the stillness of the desert magnifies its presence. For those who can hear it, it can disrupt sleep, cause headaches, and create a general sense of unease. What makes the Taos hum particularly intriguing is that despite decades of investigations, no one has been able to definitively identify the source of the sound. There have been many attempts to measure and track the hum, but so far, the mystery remains unsolved. The sound itself seems to defy the usual explanations. Some scientists have speculated that it could be the result of certain low-frequency sounds, known as infrasound, that humans can hear under specific conditions. Infrasound is sound below the range of human hearing, but in certain instances, it can be perceived as a hum or vibration. It's been known to occur in nature, such as from ocean waves or earthquakes, and some have wondered if the Taos hum could be linked to seismic activity or atmospheric phenomena. Another theory points to technological causes. Some researchers have suggested that the hum might be the result of industrial or military equipment operating nearby, radar, underground testing, or even electromagnetic activity. The idea is that high-powered equipment could produce vibrations or electromagnetic waves that create the sensation of a constant hum. In fact, the proximity of military bases, such as the Los Alamos National Laboratory, to Taos, has fueled this speculation. Could the sound be related to secretive activities or experiments conducted in the area? Some have even proposed that the hum could be the result of global wireless communication systems or even satellite transmissions, though no definitive evidence has ever been found to support these ideas. However, many who hear the hum remain unsatisfied with these explanations. For those who experience it, the sound feels more personal, more subjective. Some residents have even claimed that the hum is not a physical phenomenon at all, but something more mysterious, perhaps a psychological or auditory illusion. Could it be that the sound is a form of mass hysteria or a psychological condition where people begin to hear the hum because they expect it and their minds create it? This theory, while not widely accepted, suggests that the mind may be more capable of creating its own sensory experiences than we realize, especially when influenced by a shared belief or expectation. Yet, there are other, more speculative ideas that venture into the realm of the paranormal. Some who hear the hum are convinced that it is not of human origin at all, but something far more mysterious. Could it be a result of extraterrestrial activity, as some have suggested? The hum's elusive nature, coupled with its seemingly selective audience, has led some to entertain the possibility that it could be a signal or communication from an unknown source. Perhaps the hum is not just a sound, but a message, one that humanity has yet to decode. Others have theorized that the hum could be a symptom of something even more enigmatic, a subtle form of mind control or surveillance, a side effect of some global technological experiment, or a warning from forces unknown. Despite the numerous theories, the sound continues, undeterred by human investigation. The Taos hum has persisted for over 30 years, and it remains a source of unease for those who experience it. Some residents have even gone so far as to leave the area, citing the hum as a primary factor in their decision. It is a mystery that refuses to be solved, a riddle wrapped in the silence of the desert, and it leaves behind more questions than answers. Could there be a simple explanation that has yet to be discovered, hiding just beyond our current understanding of physics or acoustics? Or is there something more at play, something that transcends the physical world? The Taos hum has become an enduring enigma, a sound that seems to echo through the air and through time, leaving those who hear it in a state of profound mystery. What could it be? Is it simply an unexplained natural phenomenon, or does it point to something deeper, something we have yet to uncover? The Taos hum remains a puzzle that continues to defy conventional explanations. For the few who can hear it, the hum is a constant reminder that not all mysteries are easily solved. What, if anything, is behind this strange, persistent sound? Is it a physical occurrence, a psychological illusion, or something far stranger? Perhaps, as with so many of history's most haunting mysteries, the truth is still out there, waiting to be found, or perhaps waiting to be understood in a way we have yet to grasp. Leaving behind the hum of Taos, we now find ourselves in a small, quiet town nestled in the Appalachian foothills of West Virginia, a place where the quiet rhythms of everyday life are punctuated by the distant chirp of crickets and the rustling of trees in the wind. This serene setting, where time seems to slow, became the backdrop to one of the most perplexing and chilling mysteries of the 20th century. It was here, on Christmas Eve of 1945, that the Sodder family's world was shattered in a way that no one could have ever foreseen. The Sodder family home was a large, two-story house perched on a hill overlooking the town of Fayetteville. The night was cold, but the warmth of the fire inside offered a sense of comfort as the family gathered for the holiday. George and Jenny Sodder, the parents, were in the living room, while their 10 children, ranging in age from 5 to 14, played upstairs or settled in for bed. Everything seemed to be as it should be, a typical holiday evening, until the fateful moment when the house went up in flames. Around 1 a.m. on December 25th, the Sodder house was suddenly engulfed in flames. George and Jenny awoke to the sounds of crashing glass and flames licking the air, quickly realizing that the fire had spread throughout the home. In a panic, George rushed to the stairs to find his children, but the smoke was thick, and the fire was quickly consuming the structure. Some of the children were able to escape. George and Jenny's 9-year-old son, who had been sleeping in a room on the ground floor, managed to leap from a window to safety. The 2 older children, who were also on the ground floor, were able to flee. But as the fire raged, the 5 younger children, Martha, Maurice, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, were left behind. George, despite his frantic attempts to reach them, was forced to flee as the flames closed in. Outside, he and Jenny watched helplessly as the inferno consumed the building. Once the fire was extinguished, the local fire department began its investigation. But the most baffling part of the tragedy was yet to come. While the house had been completely destroyed, and despite the intense heat of the fire, there was no trace of the 5 missing children. The fire had burned so intensely that it had reduced the home to rubble, but it had not left behind a single charred remains of the children. How could this be? The fire had been so fierce that it had destroyed everything in its path, yet there was no sign of the children in the ruins. The fire department quickly concluded that the children must have perished in the blaze, and the case was considered closed. However, George and Jenny Sodder were not convinced. They couldn't shake the feeling that something didn't add up, that the fire wasn't the cause of their children's disappearance. The most puzzling detail was the absence of any remains. In a fire of that magnitude, it was nearly impossible for bodies to completely vanish. The Sodders began to question whether their children had died in the fire at all, or if something far more sinister had occurred. Several details raised their suspicions. For one, George had tried to use the ladder to reach the second story to rescue the children, but it was mysteriously missing from its usual spot outside the house. Even more alarming, a phone line that could have been used to call for help had been severed the night before. The family was convinced that someone, or something, was preventing them from escaping the fire. The mystery deepened when the Sodders learned that witnesses had reported seeing suspicious figures near the house earlier that evening, men who were seen lurking around the property. As the months passed, the Sodders continued to search for their children. In January 1946, a phone call to a local funeral home confirmed that no bodies had been found in the wreckage. In fact, when the firemen and investigators examined the site, they found that there was no evidence of human remains, despite the extensive heat of the fire. The family's determination led them to continue investigating on their own, even hiring a private investigator to search for any leads that might have been overlooked. What they uncovered during their search was both strange and unsettling. A local woman claimed to have seen the 5 missing children on the day of the fire, walking down the road toward a neighbor's house. This raised even more questions. If the children had indeed escaped the flames, where had they gone? Could they have been kidnapped? The Sodders began to consider the possibility that the fire was intentionally set to cover up the abduction of their children. But who would want to harm the family in such a brutal way? In the years that followed, more mysterious leads and clues emerged, though none of them definitively solved the mystery. In 1950, a year after the fire, the Sodders received a letter from a woman in Florida claiming to have seen the 5 children living in a neighboring town. The woman described them as being in good health, living under assumed names. However, despite the family's efforts to trace this lead, no concrete evidence was found to confirm the children's whereabouts. As time passed, George and Jenny Sodder never stopped searching. They continued to put up posters, pleading for information about their children. Over the years, they followed up on numerous leads, but nothing ever turned up. The mystery of the missing Sodder children persisted, leaving the family and the world wondering if they had truly died in the fire or if they had been taken somewhere far away, hidden from sight. Theories abound about what happened that night. Some have suggested that the fire was started intentionally, either as an act of revenge or as part of a larger, more calculated plan. Others believe that the children may have been abducted before the fire started, and that the blaze was simply a distraction intended to cover up the kidnapping. Some even speculate that the children could have been taken by someone they knew, a person who was able to enter the home undetected. Another theory is that the fire may have been a tragic accident and that the children had somehow escaped, only to be lost in the surrounding wilderness. Yet, given the lack of any bodies or remains, this explanation remains deeply unsatisfying to the Sodders, who remain convinced that their children's disappearance is part of a much larger, darker mystery. In 1967, the family placed a billboard along Route 16 in Fayetteville, West Virginia, offering a reward for information about the children. The billboard remained up for years, and the family never gave up hope that they would someday find their missing children, or at least uncover the truth about what happened that fateful night. To this day, the mystery of the Sodder children's disappearance remains unsolved. Did the children perish in the fire, as the authorities concluded, or did they survive and go on to live under different identities? Was there someone, perhaps a stranger, or even someone close to the family, who was responsible for their disappearance? The truth remains elusive, a haunting and unanswered question that has left the Sodder family and the world searching for answers. The mystery lingers, unresolved, with no clear explanation in sight. And the question remains, what really happened to the 5 Sodder children on that cold Christmas Eve in 1945? As we leave behind the tragic mystery of the Sodder children's disappearance, we now turn our attention to a much earlier enigma, one that begins in the quiet fields of rural England, in the small village of Woolpit, Suffolk. It's a place where the rolling hills meet dense woodlands, and the earth is rich with history, though much of that history remains hidden in the shadows. It was here, in the 12th century, that a strange and perplexing story unfolded. A tale that continues to spark intrigue, fascination, and, for some, a sense of disbelief. This is the story of the Green Children of Woolpit. The year was around 1150, and the village of Woolpit was a quiet and unassuming place, its name perhaps more associated with agriculture and rural life than with anything particularly extraordinary. Yet, in the midst of this ordinary world, something truly bizarre happened, something so strange that it has defied easy explanation for centuries. According to local lore, 2 children, a brother and sister, suddenly appeared one day, wandering into the village near the site of one of the many wolf pits, deep, dark holes used to trap wolves, after which the village had taken its name. The children, when they were discovered, were not like the villagers. They were foreign, otherworldly, and most striking of all, they were green. The children's skin was described as having an unusual greenish hue, one that seems to have captivated the imaginations of those who later recorded the story. Their clothes were also strange, made of an unfamiliar fabric that did not resemble anything known in the region at the time. When the villagers first encountered them, they were confused and frightened, as the children did not speak the local language. Their eyes were wide with bewilderment, and their behavior was equally strange. Perhaps, too, a reflection of their unfamiliarity with the world they had stumbled into. The children were eventually taken to the home of Richard de Calne, a local landowner, who, after some time, offered them food and shelter. But what happened next only deepened the mystery. The Green children, having never seen cooked food before, initially refused to eat the meals offered to them. They seemed unfamiliar with human food entirely, and instead, they only desired beans. Eventually, though, they were persuaded to try other foods, though they reportedly struggled to understand the customs of the people around them. Over time, the children began to adjust to their new environment, and they began to speak. But their speech was odd and unintelligible to the people of Woolpit, who could not understand their language. Despite this, they slowly adapted to their new life, though much about their origins remained unknown. The boy, unfortunately, did not survive long, succumbing to illness within a year. However, the girl, who eventually became known as Agnes, lived on for many years, assimilating into English society and eventually learning to speak the local language. As the girl's story unfolded, more details emerged that would add to the mystery. Agnes revealed that she and her brother had come from a place she called St. Martin's Land, a realm that seemed to exist outside the known world. She described a place where the sun never fully set, where everything appeared to be in a perpetual twilight, and where the people lived in a land filled with green pastures. Yet, when pressed for more details, her descriptions remained vague, as though she could not fully explain the world from which she had come. It was as if the place she spoke of was beyond the comprehension of those who listened to her. So, who were these strange children? Where had they come from, and what did their appearance signify? Many explanations have been proposed over the centuries, but none of them fully solve the puzzle. One of the most straightforward explanations is that the children were simply lost, or perhaps even orphaned, travelers from a foreign land. Some have suggested that they were Flemish immigrants who were known to have arrived in England at the time. In this theory, the greenish hue of their skin could be attributed to malnutrition or a medical condition, perhaps a result of a diet consisting mainly of green vegetables like beans. This would explain their unusual appearance and odd behavior, as well as their seeming inability to adapt to the local food. Such a condition might also explain why they spoke an unintelligible language. They may have been raised in a community with a different dialect or language, furthering the confusion about their origins. Another, more speculative theory points to the possibility of a supernatural or extraterrestrial origin. The Green Children, with their otherworldly appearance, have been linked by some to stories of alien encounters. Could they have come from a distant place, perhaps from another dimension, or even another world? The fact that they came from a twilight realm, one that didn't quite align with the normal world, has led some to wonder if the children were somehow connected to paranormal phenomena, or perhaps even visitors from another planet. This theory, while captivating, remains firmly in the realm of speculation, though it adds a sense of wonder to the tale. Others suggest that the children might have been the victims of a medieval myth or a distorted legend, one that became more fantastical over time as it was passed down through the generations. Could the villagers have created a story around these unusual children to explain their strange appearance? Or might the tale of the Green Children have been an allegory, representing some larger moral or social message? It's possible that the story evolved over the centuries, taking on more mystery and intrigue as people struggled to understand what they had witnessed. Perhaps the most grounded explanation focuses on the idea of a cultural misunderstanding, one that could be rooted in the complex social dynamics of the time. The 12th century was a period of great upheaval, with many cultures colliding as a result of war, migration, and exploration. It's possible that the Green Children were part of a larger migration or group of travelers who were unfamiliar with the English language and customs. Their greenish skin might have been the result of illness, malnutrition, or exposure to unknown environmental factors. In all of these theories, one central question remains. Why were these children green? Was it simply a physical condition, an inexplicable aspect of their biology? Or was it symbolic of something deeper, something that transcends our understanding of the world in which they appeared? As we look back on this strange and haunting tale, we are left with more questions than answers. The mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit lingers in the air, like a whisper from a time long past. Could these children have come from a place beyond our world, a place that we cannot fully comprehend? Or were they simply a part of the turbulent and unfamiliar world of 12th century England, where even the most ordinary events could take on an air of the extraordinary? Their story remains, even after all these years, a mystery that challenges our understanding of the strange and unexplained. Perhaps, in the end, the answer lies in the very question itself. What is it about the human experience that compels us to look for meaning in the unknown? The Green Children of Woolpit may never have an explanation that satisfies all of our curiosities. But perhaps the mystery is part of the allure, a riddle from the past that continues to haunt us, inviting us to wonder what truths may still lie hidden beneath the surface. As we leave behind the otherworldly mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit, we now shift our focus to a different kind of riddle, one that has captured the imaginations of treasure hunters, historians, and adventurers alike for more than 2 centuries. Deep in the forests of Nova Scotia, Canada, lies a place shrouded in legend and mystery, the Oak Island Money Pit. A seemingly ordinary island, surrounded by the tranquil waters of the Atlantic Ocean, holds within it a secret that has eluded discovery for generations. What lies beneath the surface of Oak Island? And why has this place become the site of so many failed attempts to unlock its hidden treasure? Oak Island is a small, lush island located off the coast of Nova Scotia, just a short distance from the mainland. At first glance, it appears to be like any other island in the region, green, rugged, and surrounded by the calming rhythm of the sea. But this seemingly peaceful landscape hides a chilling enigma, one that has defied explanation for centuries. In 1795, a young boy named Daniel McGinnis was wandering the shores of Oak Island when he noticed something unusual, a depression in the ground. Intrigued, he began to dig, believing that he had stumbled upon something important. As he dug deeper, he uncovered a layer of flat stones, and then a second and a third. Beneath the stones, he found a structure, what appeared to be a shaft or well. But when he reached a certain depth, the boy encountered something unexpected, a stone slab with an inscription carved into it. It was a cryptic message that, if it could be deciphered, might offer the key to unlocking the mystery. McGinnis's discovery sparked a chain of events that would lead to years of excavation and speculation. The island, it seemed, was hiding something valuable, perhaps even priceless. But as teams of treasure hunters descended on the island, digging deeper into the earth, they encountered more questions than answers. Over the years, countless attempts have been made to find the treasure said to lie buried in the money pit. Some believe the pit was the hiding place of pirate treasure, perhaps the legendary hoard of Captain Kidd. Others speculate that it might contain the long-lost manuscripts of the Knights Templar, or some other ancient relic of historical significance. The theories are as varied as the treasure hunters themselves, each one offering a tantalizing glimpse of what might be waiting beneath the surface. But no matter how many times the pit has been dug, no treasure has ever been conclusively uncovered. In fact, the deeper the excavations go, the more perplexing and dangerous the pit becomes. Every time a team believes they are on the verge of discovering the riches hidden within, new obstacles emerge: flooding, shifting tides, and collapsing tunnels. The pit itself seems to be deliberately resisting every attempt to uncover its secrets. Some have even died in their attempts to reach the treasure, and the island has earned a reputation as a place cursed by misfortune. One of the most baffling aspects of the Oak Island money pit is the sophisticated system of booby traps and flood tunnels that seems to be built into the very structure of the pit. When excavators attempt to dig deeper into the pit, they often encounter water, as though the pit itself is designed to flood at certain levels. How could such an elaborate mechanism have been constructed more than 200 years ago? Some have speculated that the pit was built as a kind of vault, a secure hiding place for something of great importance. But if this is true, who could have built such a complex system of tunnels and traps? As the years have passed, new theories have emerged, some more speculative than others. Some believe that the money pit is a treasure trove filled with the riches of the Knights Templar, whose legendary wealth was said to be hidden after their dissolution in the early 14th century. According to this theory, the Templars hid their treasure on Oak Island as a means of preserving their legacy. The inscription on the stone slab, some say, may be a cryptic clue left behind by the Templars to guide future generations to their hidden cache. But there is little concrete evidence to support this theory, and some have questioned whether the Templars ever even visited Oak Island. Another theory posits that the treasure buried in the pit is tied to the famous pirate Captain Kidd, who was active in the late 17th and early 18th centuries. Kidd was known to have buried treasure in various locations, and Oak Island is a plausible site for one of his hidden hoards. Some even point to the connection between Kidd's infamous trial for piracy and the possibility that he may have left behind a cache of loot before his arrest. Yet again, there is no definitive proof linking Kidd to the money pit, and much of the evidence is circumstantial at best. Others believe that the money pit might contain something far more mysterious, perhaps documents or artifacts that are valuable not for their monetary worth, but for their historical significance. Could the pit be hiding secret manuscripts, perhaps related to the early explorers of the Americas or the lost history of indigenous peoples. Some have suggested that Oak Island might hold clues to the true origins of the New World, or even evidence of ancient civilizations predating known history. And then there are those who entertain even more speculative theories, suggesting that the Oak Island Money Pit is a place of esoteric significance, perhaps tied to the ancient knowledge of alchemists or the mysterious rituals of secret societies. Some argue that the island is a symbolic location, its treasure not a physical object, but a key to unlocking hidden knowledge, a treasure of the mind rather than material wealth. Could it be that the pit holds not gold, but something far more valuable, a hidden truth about the nature of our world and its history? Despite the myriad of theories, one thing remains clear. The Oak Island Money Pit continues to defy explanation. What lies beneath the surface of the island? Is it simply a hoard of forgotten treasure, or is there something more? After centuries of searching, the pit still remains a place of mystery, tantalizingly close to discovery but forever elusive. The island has become a symbol of human curiosity and perseverance, a place where the quest for answers seems endless. And perhaps in that quest, there is something more profound to be found, something beyond treasure or relics, something about the nature of mystery itself. Could it be that the true treasure of Oak Island is not buried beneath the earth, but in the search itself? The Oak Island Money Pit may yet have its secrets revealed, but for now it remains an enigma, a place where the past and present collide, and where the greatest treasure may not be a chest of gold, but the pursuit of knowledge that has drawn so many to its shores. What lies beneath? Perhaps the answer is still waiting to be uncovered. Leaving behind the tantalizing enigma of the Oak Island Money Pit, we now find ourselves in a far different setting, an isolated hill in the dense forests of Brazil, where the world of the ordinary meets the unknown. Here, in the quiet, verdant landscape of Vintem Hill, two men met their end in an unusual and chilling manner. This is the case of the Lead Masks, one of Brazil's most perplexing and unsettling mysteries, a case that continues to haunt the edges of the country's criminal and paranormal lore. It was the night of August 20th, 1966, when the bodies of two men were discovered in an area known for its quiet solitude. The men, Miguel José Viana and João dos Reis Silva, were both experienced engineers in their 30s and had been working together for some time. They were last seen leaving Rio de Janeiro for a trip to Vintem Hill, a place that, on the surface, seemed an unlikely location for tragedy. The hill, nestled in the rural outskirts of the city, offered little more than lush greenery and the peaceful isolation of the Brazilian countryside, a stark contrast to the grim discovery that would unfold there. The two men had traveled to the hill under the pretense of investigating what they believed might be a source of unexplained phenomena. Accounts vary as to the exact nature of their mission. Some suggest they were investigating UFO sightings or engaging in some form of spiritual or occult practice. Regardless of the true nature of their journey, what was found on the hill would confound investigators and fuel speculation for decades to come. When the bodies were found, they were positioned in an eerie manner. Lying side by side, both men were dressed in formal clothes, though their faces and hands were covered with thick metallic lead masks. These masks, heavy and strange in their design, were the first sign that something deeply unusual had occurred. There were no signs of violence or struggle on the men's bodies, and the ground around them showed no evidence of a struggle, no marks that might suggest they had been attacked or even moved. The only other clue that could be found was a small notebook containing a series of cryptic, almost nonsensical entries. The two men's deaths were ruled as suspicious by the authorities, but there were no immediate explanations as to why they had died, nor why they had been found in such a peculiar state. The cause of death, when later investigated, was attributed to poisoning, though the precise poison was never identified. It was as though the men had perished suddenly and without warning, their lives snuffed out in an instant by an invisible force. No one could explain why they had traveled to the remote hill, nor what they had hoped to find there. The lead masks, too, seemed to offer no clear answer, though they raised troubling questions. Why had they worn such heavy masks, and why were they left behind when the men were found? Were the masks a form of protection against something, or were they part of some ritualistic or ceremonial practice? In the days following the discovery, speculation about the nature of their deaths ran rampant. The most popular theory suggested that the men had been involved in some sort of experimental or mystical endeavor. Perhaps they had come to the hill to engage in a secret occult ritual, or to explore the possibility of communicating with extraterrestrial entities. The idea of UFO activity was particularly compelling, given the apparent connection between the men's disappearance and the many UFO sightings in the area around the same time. Could the masks have been a form of protection against alien forces or cosmic radiation, as some believed? Others speculated that the men's deaths might be linked to a more earthly cause, a botched experiment, perhaps involving dangerous substances or chemicals. Was it possible that the engineers had inadvertently poisoned themselves, either through the ingestion of a substance they had been working with or as a result of exposure to toxins while on the hill? Some of the entries in the notebook hinted at something akin to an experimental process, with references to synthesizing something or exploring new forms of matter. Could they have been conducting an illicit experiment that went horribly wrong? And then there were those who leaned into the realm of the paranormal. Could the lead masks, with their strange and unusual design, have been connected to some ritualistic practice, possibly related to death, protection, or transcendence? There were whispers that the masks might have had spiritual significance, that they were meant to shield the men's minds or souls from some otherworldly influence. Did they believe they could access a higher plane of existence, or perhaps enter into a state of communication with forces beyond our understanding? Were they trying to pierce the veil between life and death, or communicate with beings from another world? As authorities scoured the area for additional clues, the mystery deepened. No clear evidence pointed to a definitive cause of death, and no one seemed to know the purpose of the lead masks. Over time, the investigation stagnated, with little progress made in uncovering the true circumstances of the men's deaths. The case was filed away, but the strange story of the lead masks continued to reverberate through Brazil's cultural consciousness. Many years later, the case would come to light once again when it was revisited in various books, documentaries, and media reports. Theories continued to evolve, and new suggestions emerged. Could the men have been part of a secret society, one that sought to access forbidden knowledge or engage in dangerous experiments? Or could they have been involved in some sort of religious or spiritual practice that ultimately led to their demise? Yet, despite the many theories, the mystery of the lead masks case remains unsolved, with no definitive answers. Was the cause of death really poisoning, or was there something more sinister at play? What were the masks for, and why were the men wearing them? Were they trying to protect themselves from something they couldn't understand? Or were they embarking on a journey that led them to a place of no return? In the years since the tragedy, the case has become an enduring symbol of the inexplicable and the unknown. As with many mysteries, the answers seem to be just out of reach, obscured by the fog of time, strange symbols, and missing pieces. The lead masks case continues to linger in the minds of those who study the unexplained, prompting us to ask, What really happened to Miguel José Viana and João dos Reis Silva on that quiet hill in 1966? Were they victims of an experiment gone wrong, or were they attempting to uncover something far more enigmatic, something that even today remains hidden in the shadows? The answers may lie buried in the past, or perhaps they will never be found at all. But one thing is certain: the case of the lead masks is a mystery that, like so many others, continues to elude resolution, inviting those who dare to explore it to wonder what secrets might still be waiting to be uncovered. Leaving behind the enigma of the lead masks, we now turn to a mystery that stretches far deeper into the corridors of time and intellect, a riddle that has baffled cryptographers, historians, and linguists for centuries. It's a story not of human lives lost, but of knowledge concealed, wrapped in the cryptic pages of a manuscript so puzzling, so bizarre, that its true meaning remains as elusive as the day it was first discovered. This is the mystery of the Voynich Manuscript. Nestled in the heart of the Yale University Library's rare book collection, the Voynich Manuscript is an object that immediately captivates all who lay eyes upon it. Bound in a small leather cover, its pages contain an assortment of odd, indecipherable symbols, characters that bear no resemblance to any known alphabet, language, or cipher. Interwoven with the strange script are intricate illustrations, depicting surreal botanical drawings of plants that do not exist in nature, as well as astronomical diagrams that appear to defy modern understanding of the cosmos. The manuscript's eerie beauty and profound mystery have made it one of the most perplexing and sought-after texts in the world. Yet despite the countless attempts to decode its meaning, the Voynich Manuscript remains an unsolved riddle, its secrets carefully guarded within its vellum pages. The manuscript is named after Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish-American bookseller who acquired it in 1912. Voynich, intrigued by its origins and the enigmatic writing it contained, spent years attempting to unlock its meaning, but to no avail. He is, in a sense, the man who gave this manuscript its modern name, though its true origin and author remain shrouded in mystery. Radiocarbon dating places the creation of the manuscript somewhere between 1404 and 1438, during the late Middle Ages or early Renaissance. Yet despite its age, it contains no obvious signs of its origins. It doesn't seem to belong to any known culture or linguistic tradition. There are no notes, no marginalia, no context clues that tie it to any specific time or place. The ink used in the manuscript is consistent with medieval European texts, but nothing about its design, content, or purpose connects it to any recognizable scholarly or religious traditions of the time. The mystery begins with the script. The text is written in an alphabet that is completely unique. No one has been able to identify it as belonging to any known language. Some scholars have posited that it could be a code or cipher, but none of the various cryptographic methods tested over the years have been able to break the script. Every attempt to decipher it, from classical cryptography to modern computer analysis, has failed. It's as though the language was designed to be impervious to decryption, an uncrackable code that resists all known methods of analysis. Interwoven with the text are strange illustrations that raise even more questions. Some of the botanical drawings appear to depict plants that have never been seen before, their forms unlike anything found in nature. Other illustrations seem to represent cosmic phenomena, including stars and constellations, that don't fit into the models of astronomy known to the time. There are also drawings of women, some submerged in water, others seemingly engaging in ritualistic or alchemical processes. The bizarre nature of these illustrations only deepens the manuscript's mystery. What could they mean? Why were they included, and what do they have to do with the text? Some have suggested that these images might hold hidden clues to the text's meaning, like a form of visual code that complements the written language. There is no shortage of theories as to the purpose and origin of the manuscript. Some of the more conventional explanations suggest that it could be a medieval herbal or alchemical book, a work designed to catalog plants or substances used in ancient medical practices. The strange plants depicted in the manuscript might represent the author's attempt to document unknown species or ideas about botany that were not yet widely understood. Others believe the manuscript could be an alchemical or mystical text, perhaps a grimoire or treatise on the hidden secrets of the universe, encoded in a manner that was meant to keep its knowledge inaccessible to all but the initiated. The symbolism of the women in the water, the strange cosmic diagrams, and the cryptic language may point toward some form of esoteric knowledge that only select individuals were meant to understand. There's another theory that the manuscript could be a hoax, a product of a medieval prankster or an early Renaissance forger attempting to deceive future generations. Some scholars have proposed that the manuscript was created as a piece of artistic expression, designed to confuse and perplex. The idea of a work so intricate and detailed being crafted solely to baffle seems far-fetched, but it has nonetheless found a place in the conversation. After all, hoaxes were not unheard of in the Middle Ages, and there were certainly people at the time who had the skill to create such a convincing puzzle. Then there's the far more speculative theory that the Voynich Manuscript is a document of extraterrestrial origin, or perhaps even a message from a distant civilization. This theory, while lacking in empirical evidence, has nonetheless captivated the imagination of many. The manuscript's bizarre illustrations, its unknown script, and its curious cosmological drawings all invite the possibility that the text might not be human in origin at all. Could it be that the Voynich Manuscript is a communication from beings far beyond Earth, encoded in a way that we have not yet learned to decipher? Even more far-reaching ideas have been proposed over the years. Some suggest that the manuscript might be a product of time travel, a text written by someone who traveled from the future, armed with knowledge and concepts that we can't yet understand. The strange and seemingly nonsensical nature of the manuscript could be a result of our inability to process the advanced ideas embedded within its pages. In this view, the text may represent a glimpse into a future that we are not yet ready to comprehend. Despite all the speculation, none of these theories have been conclusively proven. The manuscript itself remains the same, its pages filled with strange symbols and mysterious illustrations that have yet to yield their secrets. There is no evidence of who authored the book, nor of why it was created. Some of the leading scholars who have studied the manuscript over the years have come to the conclusion that it may never be understood fully in our lifetimes. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Voynich Manuscript is that it seems to resist all our attempts to categorize or explain it. It's neither completely alien nor easily understood. It doesn't fit within the confines of what we know about history, language, or even art. It exists in a liminal space, hovering between the known and the unknown, challenging us to keep asking questions. For now, the Voynich Manuscript remains one of the most compelling and enduring mysteries of human history. Could it be that its secrets will one day be unlocked? Or will it remain forever a relic of the past, an enigma that may never reveal its true purpose or meaning? What lies hidden within those pages? Perhaps the answer is not in the script itself, but in the very act of searching for meaning, a pursuit that keeps us forever engaged with the manuscript's silent, unfathomable message. The mystery continues, waiting for someone, somewhere, to crack the code. Or perhaps, as with so many mysteries, its secrets will remain forever out of reach. As we leave behind the elusive mysteries of ancient texts, we now turn our attention to a more recent enigma, one that still reverberates through the quiet, desolate lands of northern Canada. Here, nestled deep within the frozen expanse of the Arctic, lies Angikuni Lake, a place that should have been home to a thriving Inuit community, but instead became the setting for one of the most haunting and perplexing disappearances in modern history. The village of Angikuni, once a small Inuit settlement near the lake of the same name, was located in the remote, icy stretches of Canada's Nunavut territory. This cold and unforgiving environment, a land of endless snow and biting winds, should have been the home of a tight-knit, resilient community, one that had adapted to the harsh conditions of the North for centuries. But in 1930, this small village, along with all its inhabitants, inexplicably vanished, leaving behind nothing but an unsettling emptiness. The very ground where the village once stood seemed to swallow its people whole, as if the land itself had claimed them. The story begins in November 1930, when a trapper by the name of Joe LaBelle arrived in Angikuni to find that something was terribly wrong. LaBelle, accustomed to the solitude and isolation of life in the Arctic, was taken aback when he arrived at the village and found it completely deserted. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of violence, and no indication of where the villagers had gone. In fact, the only things left behind were the most peculiar of clues, things that raised even more questions. The homes in the village were undisturbed, the doors still closed and locked, but the huts were empty. All the belongings of the villagers remained in place, as if the inhabitants had simply stepped away for a moment. However, when LaBelle investigated further, he discovered something even more unsettling. In one of the huts, he found a large amount of food that had been prepared but was left untouched. There was still fish hanging to dry, meat in barrels, and even warm cooking fires that seemed to have been abandoned only moments before. In a place where survival depended on every resource, why would the villagers leave food behind, especially when it seemed so recently prepared? Even more troubling were the details of the village's pet dogs. LaBelle came upon their bodies, lying frozen in the snow. These were dogs that had been cared for by the villagers, and yet they had died in a state of starvation, despite having food readily available. The dogs had not been used as hunting companions in the recent days, nor were they in any condition to have fled with their owners. Their lifeless bodies seemed to suggest something even more disturbing. Something had happened to the villagers that prevented them from taking even the most basic steps to survive. In the days that followed, LaBelle alerted the authorities, and a search was launched to investigate what had happened to the people of Angikuni. When investigators arrived, they found much the same, a completely deserted village with no trace of the inhabitants. The search turned up no bodies, no signs of struggle, and no indication that the people of Angikuni had left the village willingly. It was as if they had simply vanished. Theories immediately began to emerge, attempting to explain this mysterious disappearance. Some suggested that the villagers had been struck by a deadly disease or a sudden natural disaster, perhaps an avalanche or a storm so fierce that it caught them unaware. However, no physical evidence was found to support these explanations. The lack of any sign of illness, trauma, or disruption to the village itself ruled out the idea of a catastrophe. Furthermore, the villagers' dogs, which were usually the first line of defense against any threat, were found dead, but not in a manner consistent with exposure to an avalanche or environmental catastrophe. As the years went by, more questions continued to arise. Why had the villagers left everything behind in such an organized fashion? Why had they not attempted to flee or take their belongings? And why had they not left any trace of their departure, especially given the vast, unforgiving landscape that surrounded them? One theory, perhaps the most speculative, suggests that the disappearance was the result of a paranormal or extraterrestrial encounter. Some believe that the villagers of Angikuni may have had some form of contact with beings not of this earth, whether they were aliens, interdimensional travelers, or some other mysterious force. The theory is bolstered by the strange circumstances surrounding the village's abandonment, the food left uneaten, the dog's strange behavior, and the complete lack of evidence of any natural cause of death or disappearance. Could it be that the villagers had encountered something beyond their understanding, something that caused them to vanish without a trace? Others have suggested that the village's disappearance could be tied to a local legend, one that spoke of a curse that befell the people who lived near Angikuni Lake. Some say that the lake itself is haunted, cursed by spirits that seek vengeance on those who live near its waters. Perhaps the village was the victim of an ancient curse, a curse that wiped out the inhabitants as a form of retribution. The eerie emptiness of the village and the fact that the people left no trace of their departure would fit with such a story. Another, more plausible theory ties the disappearance to the challenging environment of the Arctic. Could the villagers have been struck by a sudden and devastating storm, one so fierce that it forced them to flee without any preparation or forethought? It's possible that a group of them ventured out in search of shelter or supplies, but were lost in the vast snowdrifts, never to be seen again. The harsh, unpredictable nature of the Arctic wilderness makes this a plausible explanation, though it still doesn't account for the strange details, like the untouched food and the frozen bodies of the dogs, that seem to suggest something more deliberate at play. And then, there's the possibility that the disappearance was part of a more human, yet equally unsettling explanation. Perhaps the villagers were attacked by an unknown group, a band of outsiders who raided the village and took the people away. While there are no signs of such an attack, it remains a possibility that the village was simply raided and the inhabitants were taken, leaving behind only the bare remnants of their existence. But with no bodies, no evidence, and no conclusive leads, the truth remains as elusive as the very people who vanished from Angikuni Lake. The mystery of the vanishing village of Angikuni Lake is one of the most puzzling and eerie disappearances in modern history. Was it the result of a natural disaster, a supernatural event, or something far more sinister? What happened to the people of Angikuni, and why has no trace of them ever been found? The unanswered questions linger, and the village itself stands as a haunting reminder of how quickly and inexplicably people can vanish from the face of the earth. As with many mysteries, the answers may never be fully known, but perhaps the search for them will continue, urging us to look deeper into the unknown, to explore what might still be hidden beneath the surface of our understanding. What truly happened at Angikuni Lake? And what is it about this haunting mystery that continues to captivate the imagination, even decades after it was first discovered? The answers may still be waiting, just out of reach. As we leave behind the eerie silence of Angikuni Lake, where an entire village disappeared without a trace, we now turn our attention to another mystery, one that transcends the boundaries of time and religion. This is the story of the Shroud of Turin, a piece of cloth that has captivated the world for centuries, a relic believed by some to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. Its origins, however, are shrouded in mystery, and the debate surrounding its authenticity is as deep and complex as the history it has witnessed. The Shroud of Turin is a linen cloth measuring about 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide. It bears the faint but unmistakable image of a man who appears to have suffered a violent death, one marked by wounds consistent with crucifixion. The image on the cloth is not painted or drawn, but rather seems to have been imprinted onto the fabric in a way that defies scientific explanation. The man's face is visible, along with the marks of a crown of thorns, the wounds from nails driven through his hands and feet, and a large wound in the side, precisely as described in the Gospel accounts of Jesus' crucifixion. For centuries, the shroud has been revered by millions as the actual burial cloth of Jesus, an object of profound religious significance. It has been housed in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy, since 1578, though its history before that time is far less clear. Some claim it was hidden during the early Christian era, lost for centuries before resurfacing in the Middle Ages. Others suggest it was an artifact that was always known to a select few, quietly passed down through history until it was brought into the public eye. Its journey from one location to another is as mysterious as the image it bears. The mystery of the shroud's origin goes far beyond its physical appearance. For one, the question of how the image of the man was imprinted on the fabric has yet to be definitively answered. Scientists and researchers have tried to recreate the image using a variety of methods, from painting to ultraviolet radiation, but none have come close to replicating the strange way the image appears on the linen. The shroud is not just a relic. It is a puzzle wrapped in a fabric that seems to contain a message, a mystery that continues to provoke wonder and skepticism in equal measure. In 1988, the shroud underwent a series of tests, radiocarbon dating to be precise, to determine its age. The results were startling. The cloth was found to date from the Middle Ages, between 1260 and 1390 AD, suggesting that it was likely a medieval creation rather than a relic from the time of Christ. This conclusion caused a wave of controversy and disillusionment for many who believed the shroud to be the authentic burial cloth of Jesus. However, the carbon dating tests have since been challenged. Some believe that the samples taken for testing were contaminated or were not representative of the entire cloth, leading to doubts about the accuracy of the results. In addition to the carbon dating, there are other anomalies that complicate the story of the shroud's origin. For instance, the image itself is not painted, etched, or applied by any known means of art or craftsmanship. The image appears to have been created by an unknown process, with the body of the man on the shroud seemingly imprinted onto the fabric in a manner that suggests some form of high-energy event, possibly light or radiation. The shroud's image is three-dimensional, with the features of the face and body revealing a depth that cannot be explained by conventional artistic techniques. Furthermore, the bloodstains on the shroud, particularly those that correspond to the wounds of crucifixion, appear to be real human blood, according to forensic analysis. This raises even more questions. If the shroud was a medieval creation, how could it possibly have traces of blood that are consistent with the accounts of Jesus' crucifixion? The blood on the cloth matches the type and location of the wounds described in the New Testament. Could it be that the cloth was created with such extraordinary detail that it mirrors the story of Christ's death? Or is it possible that the blood on the shroud is evidence of something more profound, a direct connection to an event that occurred almost 2,000 years ago? One theory suggests that the shroud may have been created through a combination of medieval knowledge and artistic skill, designed as a religious relic that would serve to enhance the faith of believers. The idea that it was a deliberate forgery to mimic the appearance of Christ's crucified body would explain some of the scientific anomalies. However, this theory is met with skepticism, given the intricate and unusual details of the image. If it was a hoax, how did the creator of the shroud manage to craft such an image with the level of detail that defies the artistic conventions of the time? On the other hand, some scientists and theologians argue that the shroud is indeed a divine artifact, a piece of evidence that has been preserved by God to bear witness to the sacrifice of Christ. This line of thought aligns with the religious significance the shroud holds for many people. For these believers, the shroud is more than just a cloth. It is a sacred relic, an object of profound meaning that stands as a testament to the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ. They believe that the image on the cloth is the result of a miraculous event, one that cannot be explained by science or human hands. There are other, more speculative theories as well. Some have suggested that the shroud's image may have been created by some form of ancient technology, a process or force that is lost to us today. Could the cloth have been exposed to a form of radiation, or perhaps some kind of energy field that caused the image to form in a way that is still not fully understood? There are those who even speculate that the shroud's origins may be linked to phenomena we cannot yet explain, perhaps even involving time travel or other dimensions. While these theories lack solid evidence, they highlight the profound mystery surrounding the Shroud. Beyond the scientific and theological debates, the Shroud of Turin remains a deeply personal and emotive subject for millions of people around the world. For believers, it is a tangible connection to the story of Christ's passion and death. For skeptics, it is a reminder of the limitations of human knowledge and understanding. For historians and scientists, it is a puzzle that continues to defy explanation. What, then, is the truth behind the Shroud of Turin? Is it a medieval artifact, a carefully crafted hoax, or is it something much older, perhaps even older than the medieval period itself? Could it truly be the burial cloth of Jesus, and if so, how did its image come to be imprinted on the linen? These questions remain unanswered, leaving us to wonder what secrets the Shroud still holds and whether we will ever uncover the truth behind its creation. As we continue to search for answers, we are reminded that the Shroud is not just a relic from the past, it is a doorway to deeper questions about faith, history, and the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. The Shroud of Turin may remain shrouded in uncertainty, but its enduring mystery compels us to continue asking, what is the true origin of this sacred cloth, and what does it reveal about the past and about us? As we leave behind the ancient mystery of the Shroud of Turin, we turn to another riddle that echoes through the sands of time: the Copper Scroll, one of the most enigmatic and tantalizing relics of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Buried within the quiet, arid cliffs of the Judean desert, this particular scroll holds within it the promise of hidden treasure that has eluded discovery for more than half a century. But what makes the Copper Scroll so unique is not just the treasures it may point to, but the very nature of the document itself and the mystery of its origins. In the barren desert of Palestine, at the site of Qumran, a complex of caves tucked into the rocky cliffs of the Dead Sea, an extraordinary discovery was made in the late 1940s and early 1950s: the Dead Sea Scrolls. These ancient texts, composed of biblical manuscripts and other writings, offered profound insight into the Jewish faith, culture, and history during the Second Temple period. However, among the scrolls found, one stood out above the rest: a scroll made of copper rather than parchment or papyrus, and unlike anything that had been uncovered before. The Copper Scroll measures around 8 feet long and is inscribed with a series of detailed instructions written in a cryptic ancient script. It is not a religious document like the others in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but rather a treasure map, or at least it seems to be. The text lists 64 locations, hidden in the hills, caves, and deserts of Palestine, where immense treasures of gold, silver, and sacred artifacts are said to be buried. But despite extensive efforts to decipher the exact locations, none of these treasures have been found. What makes the Copper Scroll especially perplexing is that, unlike other ancient texts, it does not describe the treasures in abstract or spiritual terms. It is entirely practical, detailing precise locations with clear instructions. The scroll includes measurements, directions, and distances from specific landmarks, some of which seem to correspond to actual locations in the Judean desert. The treasures it describes are immense. Estimates suggest that they could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars today. Gold, silver, and sacred temple vessels, possibly hidden away during the Roman destruction of the Second Temple in 70 A.D., an event that marked the end of the Jewish revolt and the beginning of centuries of Jewish diaspora. The most tantalizing clue is the assumption that these treasures were hidden by Jewish rebels, or perhaps even members of the Essene community, who lived at Qumran. The timing aligns with the chaos of the Roman siege and the destruction of the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Could the Copper Scroll have been created as a map to hide these priceless treasures from the Roman invaders, who would have plundered them without hesitation? It's a question that has haunted archaeologists and treasure hunters alike for generations. The story of the Copper Scroll begins in 1952, when the scroll was first discovered by a Bedouin shepherd in Cave 3 of the Qumran Caves. At first, the strange copper document was not recognized for what it truly was. But once scholars examined it, they were astounded to find that it wasn't just a religious text. It was something more cryptic and compelling, a treasure map. Over time, this small but significant artifact became a source of intense study and speculation, but also mystery. Unlike other scrolls, which were written on more conventional materials like parchment or papyrus, the Copper Scroll was made of 2 copper sheets, bound together. The unusual material added to the mystique. Why would someone go to the trouble of inscribing treasure locations on copper, rather than more typical writing surfaces? Was the material meant to withstand the ravages of time, or was it simply a product of the scroll's unique purpose? The copper construction also presented problems for scholars, as it was difficult to unroll and read. Eventually, the scroll was cut into smaller pieces for easier study, revealing the full extent of its content, though still not yielding any conclusive answers. The Copper Scroll's contents are, in essence, a treasure list. The locations provided within it seem to indicate real places, specific caves or spots near existing landmarks, such as rivers or ancient fortresses. For example, one of the locations mentioned in the scroll is near a place called the Ruin of the House of the Archers, while others describe caves near the banks of the Dead Sea, near known archaeological sites. But while these clues appear to be direct and actionable, no one has been able to definitively locate the treasures. Could these places have been lost to time, or were they intentionally hidden in such a way that they would never be found again? One major challenge to the search for the treasures is that the Copper Scroll often uses imprecise language. Distances are given in paces, which are difficult to measure across thousands of years. The landmarks referenced in the text are often vague or difficult to interpret. Some researchers believe that the Copper Scroll may have been written with deliberate obfuscation in mind, either to confuse potential treasure hunters or to ensure that the treasure would remain hidden. Were the clues really intended to lead to riches? Or were they meant to protect something more sacred? Something the Essenes, or whoever wrote the scroll, deemed too valuable to be taken by outsiders. The Copper Scroll has led to numerous theories and speculations. Some researchers believe it points to the location of the treasures hidden by the Jewish rebels during the First Jewish-Roman War. These treasures could include sacred objects from the Jewish temple in Jerusalem, items such as the menorah, the golden altar, and other ritual artifacts that would have been looted by the Romans after they sacked the temple. But if these treasures were indeed hidden, why has no one been able to find them? Were they moved again after the scroll was created? Or did the treasures remain buried, perhaps waiting to be uncovered? Others believe that the Copper Scroll may be a more symbolic document, one that represents spiritual or religious treasure rather than physical wealth. Some scholars have suggested that the scroll could be an allegory for hidden knowledge, with the treasures actually referring to lost teachings, ancient wisdom, or sacred texts. If this is the case, then the treasures described might not be material at all, but rather a metaphor for deeper truths hidden in the desert, truths that may never be fully understood. And then there are the fringe theories. Some have suggested that the treasures described in the Copper Scroll could have been carried away by the Knights Templar, or that they were connected to some kind of religious order with knowledge of ancient secrets. Others argue that the treasure is somehow linked to the lost city of Atlantis or other mythic locations. While these theories are certainly speculative, they highlight the allure the Copper Scroll holds for people seeking mysteries that transcend history and religion. Despite the numerous investigations, the treasure described in the Copper Scroll has never been found. Archaeologists, treasure hunters, and adventurers have all scoured the Judean desert, yet no significant discoveries have been made. Some locations listed in the scroll have been excavated, but no wealth has been uncovered. The copper scroll remains an unsolved puzzle, its promises of treasure still hanging tantalizingly out of reach. Perhaps the greatest mystery of the copper scroll is not whether the treasure is real, but whether it will ever be found. Are the instructions to these hidden treasures simply too obscure to decipher? Or are they truly lost, buried by time and the winds of history? The scroll's cryptic language and imprecise directions continue to defy modern understanding, keeping the treasure and the answers out of our grasp. What lies hidden in the desert, waiting to be discovered? Perhaps the true treasure is not the gold and silver, but the answers to the mystery of the copper scroll itself. For now, the scroll remains a tantalizing, silent witness to a secret history that may never be fully revealed. Moving from the cryptic copper scroll and its tantalizing promises of hidden treasure, we now turn our attention to a mystery that stretches far beyond the boundaries of Earth, a signal that may have come from deep in the vastness of space. It is a mystery that still reverberates in the halls of science, tantalizing both the scientific community and the public imagination. This is the story of the WOW signal, a brief but powerful radio signal that, for just a moment in 1977, seemed to answer one of humanity's most enduring questions. Are we alone in the universe? The story begins on the night of August 15, 1977, when a researcher named Jerry Eman, working on the SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence project at Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope, detected an unusual signal. Big Ear, located in rural Ohio, was scanning the heavens for signs of extraterrestrial communication as part of a long-running search for intelligent life beyond our planet. What Eamon found that night, however, was something that would forever alter the course of the search for alien life. The signal, which lasted for a mere 72 seconds, was unlike anything Eamon had encountered before. It was a narrow-band radio signal, emanating from the constellation Sagittarius, near the star known as Chi Sagittarii. The intensity of the signal was striking. It was so strong that it completely dwarfed the background noise that typically surrounded such radio observations. The signal was perfectly aligned with the frequency of hydrogen, the most common element in the universe, making it even more intriguing. But what truly set the WOW signal apart was its sharp, narrow frequency and its sudden, unexplained nature. It was neither a natural phenomenon, nor was it an ordinary transmission from Earth. It was something entirely different, a signal that appeared to come from deep in space, seemingly designed to be heard by someone or something on Earth. In the days following the discovery, Eamon, who had been working late that night, was so struck by the signal's peculiarity that he circled the data on the printout and wrote the word WOW in red ink next to it. The name stuck, and the WOW signal became one of the most famous and puzzling phenomena in the history of SETI research. Despite attempts to reobserve the signal, the WOW signal was never detected again. The signal's fleeting nature only added to its mystery, leaving scientists with more questions than answers. If the signal had originated from a natural source, like a comet, star, or some other celestial body, why was it so specific, so narrow, and so anomalous? Could a natural phenomenon have produced such a precise and intense burst of radio waves? And most importantly, could it have been an intentional signal from an extraterrestrial civilization? The WOW. Signal's sudden appearance and subsequent disappearance have led to a wide range of hypotheses, both scientific and speculative. Some scientists believe the signal may have come from a distant satellite or spacecraft, possibly human-made, that was inadvertently broadcasting in the same frequency band used by the Big Ear telescope. Yet, this explanation doesn't fully account for the strange characteristics of the signal, nor does it explain why no further signals were ever detected, even after subsequent scans of the same region of the sky. Others have suggested that the wow signal could have been caused by a natural source, such as an unknown cosmic event or the reflection of radio waves off an object in space. The possibility of a comet or a passing asteroid has been raised, as such objects can sometimes reflect radio waves in unusual ways. However, no known celestial body was found in the area of the signal's origin that would account for the narrow-band nature of the signal or its intensity. A more tantalizing possibility is that the wow signal was indeed a message from an extraterrestrial intelligence, a form of communication sent across the cosmos in a way that we could recognize but not fully understand. The idea that an advanced civilization could be attempting to reach us, however briefly, has captured the imagination of both scientists and the public. The idea that a distant alien species might have deliberately transmitted a signal aimed at Earth is an alluring one, but it is also fraught with uncertainty. If this were the case, why would the signal be so short? Why would it be aimed at a specific frequency that we could detect, yet disappear without any follow-up? Was the signal sent to get our attention, or was it a one-time communication, perhaps intercepted by chance? Despite its fleeting nature, the wow signal has had a profound impact on the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It has become one of the most important pieces of evidence in favor of the possibility of intelligent life beyond Earth. Its unexplained origin continues to fuel speculation and intrigue, with SETI researchers and enthusiasts returning to the signal again and again, hoping to uncover its secrets. While no other signal like it has been detected in the years since, the wow signal remains a touchstone in the ongoing search for signs of alien civilizations. Yet, as time passes, some scientists have raised the possibility that the wow signal was simply a fluke, an anomaly that we will never fully understand. It is, after all, just a single instance of strange data, with no repetition or follow-up. And while the wow signal remains a powerful symbol of the mysteries that lie beyond our world, it may also serve as a reminder of the vastness of space and the challenges we face in trying to understand it. Could it be that the signal was a one-time transmission, a random occurrence in the vast expanse of the cosmos? Or is there something more to the wow signal, a clue, perhaps, to a deeper mystery of the universe, one that we have yet to comprehend? Some theorists have suggested that the signal could have been a test, an attempt by an advanced alien civilization to see if we were capable of detecting such transmissions. Could it be that we were, in fact, contacted and simply didn't know how to respond? If the signal was truly an attempt at communication, was it meant to spark curiosity, to encourage us to look deeper into the stars? The possibilities are vast, and the questions remain unanswered. The wow signal has become a beacon in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, a mystery that has endured for over 4 decades. As we continue to scan the cosmos for signals from other civilizations, the question of whether the wow signal was a fluke or a genuine attempt at communication lingers in the air. What did we hear that night in 1977, and what might still be waiting for us in the vast expanse of space? For now, the wow signal stands as one of the most profound and puzzling mysteries in the history of SETI. It is a reminder that, in the depths of space, there are still many things beyond our understanding, signals from the stars, waiting to be heard, waiting to be decoded. And perhaps, just perhaps, the answer to the question of whether we are alone in the universe lies in a future signal, waiting to be discovered. As we leave the cosmic enigma of the wow signal behind, we now shift our gaze to the Earth, specifically to a small, seemingly ordinary artifact that has intrigued archaeologists, historians, and theorists alike for decades. This is the story of the Baghdad Battery, a strange object that has led to an enduring debate about the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations and the very nature of human innovation. Could it be that the ancients were more advanced than we've been led to believe? Or is the Baghdad Battery simply a relic whose purpose remains lost to history? The story of the Baghdad Battery begins in 1938, when a German archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig uncovered an unusual artifact in the ruins of an ancient Persian village called Ctesiphon, near modern-day Baghdad, Iraq. What Koenig found was a clay jar, about 6 inches tall, sealed with a copper lid. Inside the jar was a corroded iron rod, and wrapped around the outside of the jar was a copper coil. At first glance, the object seemed like nothing more than a curious and mundane relic from the past, a simple vessel with a metallic insert. But when Koenig closely examined the object, he began to see something much more intriguing, a possible connection to one of the most important inventions in human history, the battery. The artifact itself is not especially impressive at first glance. Made of a simple clay pot with a copper sheet lining the bottom and an iron rod placed inside, it certainly doesn't resemble anything like the batteries we are familiar with today. But what if, Koenig wondered, this object was not just an ancient vessel for storing liquids, but something much more advanced, a primitive electrical device, perhaps even the earliest known example of a battery? This hypothesis, though outlandish to some, has intrigued experts and sparked endless debate ever since. Koenig, fascinated by his discovery, proposed that the object was a type of galvanic cell capable of producing a small electrical charge. His theory was based on the fact that a similar device, in theory, could work as a simple battery. When a liquid, perhaps vinegar or acidic wine, was poured into the jar, it would create a chemical reaction between the copper and iron, producing a small electrical current. This, Koenig argued, might have been the ancients' method of generating electricity, either accidentally or deliberately, for practical use. At first, Koenig's hypothesis was largely dismissed. The idea of ancient peoples having access to electricity seemed improbable, especially when compared to the technological advancements we associate with the ancient world. And yet, as more researchers began to examine the artifact, the idea that it might indeed be an early form of battery gained some traction. The Baghdad Battery, however, isn't the only artifact that raises questions about the ancient world's potential knowledge of electricity. Similar objects have been found in other archaeological digs, particularly in the Middle East, though none have been as widely studied as the Baghdad Battery. These discoveries have led some to wonder whether the knowledge of electricity was lost to the ancient world, only to be rediscovered millennia later during the age of scientific advancement. Could the ancients have harnessed the power of electricity in ways we can barely comprehend? The idea that the Baghdad Battery was used to generate electricity isn't universally accepted, though. Many scholars argue that the artifact was simply a storage vessel for scrolls, documents, or other valuable objects, rather than a tool for creating electrical currents. After all, there are many ways to interpret the shape and structure of the object. The copper and iron could have had symbolic meaning, or the object could have been used in some entirely different, yet unknown, capacity. In support of this theory, other researchers point out that there is no direct evidence suggesting that the Babylonians, or any other ancient civilization, had the technical understanding necessary to build and use electrical devices. While the ancient world was certainly advanced in many ways, from architecture to astronomy, there is no clear evidence that electricity, let alone the controlled, consistent generation of electricity, was a technology available to them. Could the Baghdad Battery, then, be nothing more than a coincidence? A relic whose true purpose will never be known? Still, the idea of a lost technology, one that the ancients may have discovered and forgotten, is tantalizing. Could the Babylonians have stumbled upon the principles of electricity without understanding them fully? Some researchers argue that the object may have been used for electroplating, a process in which a metal is coated with another by using an electric current. In this case, the battery could have been used to create beautiful, intricate gold-plated artifacts or jewelry. If the Babylonians had indeed discovered such a technique, it would be an astonishing leap forward in technological advancement. There are those who have ventured even further into the realm of speculation, proposing that the Baghdad battery was part of a much larger, ancient effort to harness energy, perhaps even for the use of communication or other mysterious technologies. Some fringe theories suggest that the ancient Mesopotamians might have used the device to produce small amounts of energy for light, or perhaps even as part of some unknown electrical machinery. As much as these ideas are fascinating, they remain speculative and unproven. Skeptics argue that there is simply no conclusive evidence to suggest that the Baghdad battery was capable of generating significant electrical power. The object could just as easily be a simple container, used for holding something more mundane, such as ink or oil. Without more archaeological evidence to support the idea that the Babylonians had access to electricity, the hypothesis remains just that, a hypothesis. Yet, the possibility that the Baghdad battery might have been used for something more advanced continues to intrigue those who study the ancient world. If the object was indeed capable of generating electricity, it would suggest that ancient civilizations were far more advanced than we have traditionally assumed. The question arises, how many other lost technologies might have existed in the ancient world, only to be forgotten over time? Despite the lack of definitive evidence, the debate surrounding the Baghdad battery has sparked an enduring curiosity, one that continues to fuel further exploration of the ancient world's technological capabilities. Whether the artifact was an early form of battery, a religious symbol, or a piece of everyday life, it remains a symbol of the mysteries that still lurk in the shadows of history. The Baghdad battery represents more than just an archaeological oddity. It is a reminder that history, in all its complexity, is far from fully understood. Could we be overlooking forgotten technologies? Or does the answer lie in some lost cultural practice that history has failed to record? The mystery remains unresolved, and with it, the tantalizing question: what might still be hidden, buried in the sands of time, waiting to be rediscovered? As we continue our journey through time, unraveling the mysteries of lost technologies and civilizations, we find ourselves at the crossroads of antiquity and advanced engineering, a place where the line between ancient knowledge and modern discovery blurs. Among the most perplexing relics to have survived from the ancient world is the Antikythera mechanism, a device so sophisticated that it seems to defy the capabilities of its time. But as much as we have come to understand about this remarkable artifact, there remains one pressing question. Who were the builders of the Antikythera mechanism, and how did they possess the knowledge and skill to create such a complex and enigmatic device? The story begins in 1901, when a group of Greek sponge divers stumbled upon an ancient shipwreck off the coast of the small island of Antikythera, located between the Greek mainland and Crete. At first, the divers had no idea what they had uncovered. Beneath the waves, they found the wreck of a ship that had likely sunk more than 2,000 years ago, during the Roman period, and within its remains, a trove of artifacts, statues, and treasures. Among these objects was a corroded bronze fragment, which initially appeared to be little more than a lump of metal. But further inspection would reveal something much more extraordinary. The fragment was part of a complex mechanical device, something far beyond what anyone could have expected from the era. The object was a set of interlocking gears, many of which were still in place, encased in a lump of corroded metal. Archaeologists and scientists quickly realized that this was no ordinary object. It was a mechanical artifact, a kind of ancient analog computer, the purpose of which was entirely unclear. What was this device? How could it have been built with such intricate precision more than 2,000 years ago, during a time when such technology seemed far out of reach? The mystery of the Antikythera mechanism would haunt researchers for over a century, sparking a search for answers that continues to this day. The Antikythera mechanism itself is a masterpiece of ancient engineering. Measuring only about 1.5 feet in height, the device is comprised of a series of bronze gears and dials, all intricately arranged within a wooden casing. The gears, some of which are as small as a coin, mesh together in a way that is nothing short of astonishing. They were designed to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, making the device, in essence, a mechanical model of the cosmos. What is most remarkable about the Antikythera mechanism is its complexity. The gears, which are thought to number as many as 30, work together to create a series of motions that model the cycles of the heavens. The device could be used to predict astronomical phenomena such as eclipses and the positions of the planets, and it is believed to have had a calendar function that allowed it to track both the solar and lunar cycles. In essence, the Antikythera mechanism was a tool for understanding the movements of the universe, a tool that, in many ways, mirrors the more advanced astronomical calculators that wouldn't appear in Europe until the Middle Ages, or even later. But the real question remains: how did the ancient Greeks, especially those living in the Hellenistic period, around 100 BCE, have the technical knowledge to create such a sophisticated instrument? The device's complexity seems to place it far ahead of its time, and many experts have speculated that it required an advanced understanding of mechanics, astronomy, and mathematics, fields that were just beginning to be explored in the ancient world. One theory suggests that the Antikythera mechanism was built by the famous Greek inventor and mathematician Archimedes, whose brilliance is well documented in ancient texts. Archimedes is known for his inventions in hydraulics and mechanics, and some have posited that he could have had the necessary knowledge and skill to design such a device. However, no historical records support this theory, and there is no direct evidence linking Archimedes to the Antikythera mechanism. Nonetheless, the possibility that this device was the work of one of history's greatest minds cannot be entirely dismissed. Others believe that the mechanism may have been the product of the school of thought established by the philosopher Hipparchus, a Greek astronomer who made significant contributions to the understanding of the stars and planets. Hipparchus is known to have developed sophisticated methods for predicting the positions of celestial bodies, and it is possible that the Antikythera mechanism was designed by his followers as a way to visualize and calculate the movements of the heavens. This theory is supported by the fact that the device could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets with remarkable accuracy, much like the astronomical tables Hipparchus created. But there is another theory, one that is perhaps even more intriguing. What if the Antikythera mechanism was not a Greek invention at all, but the product of an entirely different civilization, one that had more advanced knowledge of mechanical engineering than the ancient Greeks? Some researchers have speculated that the mechanism could have been inspired by the technology of the ancient Egyptians or the Babylonians, who were known to have had an advanced understanding of astronomy and mathematics. The possibility that the ancient Egyptians had knowledge of mechanical devices far beyond what we typically associate with their civilization has been a subject of much speculation. Could it be that the Antikythera mechanism was the result of cross-cultural exchange brought to Greece from an ancient society that had more advanced technology? There are, however, many who argue that the mechanism was indeed Greek in origin, built by a team of skilled craftsmen and mathematicians who worked under the guidance of a brilliant inventor. This view aligns with the historical understanding of Greek scientific and mathematical progress during the Hellenistic period, a time when Greek scholars were making major strides in understanding the natural world. Even with these theories in mind, we are still left with the fundamental question: Why was such an advanced device so far ahead of its time? If the Greeks could produce something like the Antikythera mechanism, why didn't they continue to build on this technology? What happened to the knowledge that created this device? Was it lost over time, buried by the sands of history? Or did the Greeks choose not to pursue such technology for reasons we may never understand? The Antikythera mechanism raises unsettling questions about the limits of ancient knowledge. If such a sophisticated device could be created during the Hellenistic period, what else might have been lost to history? Were there other advanced technologies in the ancient world that have been obscured by time and the ravages of empires? Or is it possible that civilizations before the Greeks had an even greater understanding of science, technology, and engineering than we have yet realized? The Antikythera mechanism has been studied extensively in recent years, with advanced imaging techniques and computer modeling revealing more and more details about its inner workings. But even with these new insights, the full extent of its design and purpose remains a mystery. The ancient world may have contained more knowledge and technological sophistication than we've ever given it credit for. As we continue to probe the depths of history, the mystery of the Antikythera mechanism invites us to reflect on our own understanding of the past. The question of who built this ancient device and why remains unresolved. But with each new discovery, we are reminded that the lines between the ancient and the modern are not always as clear as they seem. The builders of the Antikythera mechanism were, perhaps, not so different from us. They too sought to understand the mysteries of the universe, and they may have done so with tools and ideas that are only now beginning to be fully understood. What else, we wonder, might still be hidden in the remnants of the ancient world, waiting to be uncovered? As we leave behind the sophisticated mechanisms of ancient Greece, we now venture into the vast, rugged terrain of the American Southwest, where the arid desert hides a treasure that has haunted adventurers, explorers, and fortune hunters for centuries. This is the story of the lost Dutchman's gold mine, a tale wrapped in mystery and intrigue, a search that has cost lives, shattered dreams, and left behind an enduring question: does the gold truly exist? Nestled within the jagged peaks of the Superstition Mountains in Arizona, the lost Dutchman's gold mine has become one of the most famous treasure legends in American folklore. The mountains themselves, a vast and unforgiving wilderness, stand like silent sentinels against the sky, their peaks often obscured by a veil of mist or cloud, giving them an eerie, almost supernatural presence. In this desolate landscape, the stories of gold and riches have drawn thousands of would-be prospectors, adventurers, and fortune seekers, all hoping to uncover a cache of wealth said to be hidden by a mysterious figure known only as the Dutchman. The legend of the lost Dutchman's gold mine begins with a man named Jacob Waltz, a German immigrant who arrived in the United States in the 1840s. Waltz settled in the Arizona Territory in the late 1800s and, according to popular accounts, discovered a rich vein of gold in the Superstition Mountains. He kept the location of the mine a secret, revealing only bits and pieces of information to a few trusted friends. But over time, Waltz became more reclusive, and after his death in 1891, the mine's location seemed to vanish along with him. What followed was a steady stream of rumors and conflicting stories. Some claim that Waltz confided the secret of the mine's location to a woman, while others say he shared it with fellow miners. According to some versions of the legend, Waltz drew a map and hid it, but it was never found. Regardless of the details, the essential story remains. A man named Jacob Waltz found a rich gold mine in the Superstition Mountains, and after his death, the treasure disappeared. And despite the countless attempts to locate the mine, no one has ever conclusively proven its existence. What makes the Lost Dutchman's gold mine so compelling is not just the idea of untold riches buried somewhere in the unforgiving desert. It is the mystery surrounding the mine's location and the enigmatic nature of the man behind the story. Jacob Waltz, often referred to as the Dutchman, a mispronunciation of Deutschman, meaning German, was known as a solitary figure, a man who did not seek fame or fortune, but kept to himself. If Waltz did indeed discover a gold mine, why did he choose to keep its location secret? Was he simply protecting his fortune from others, or was there something darker at play? For more than a century, treasure hunters have been drawn to the Superstition Mountains, eager to find the fabled gold mine. Some have claimed to be on the verge of a breakthrough, only to vanish without a trace. Others have returned empty-handed, their hopes dashed by the mountain's harsh and unforgiving terrain. Many have even died in their search, either lost in the labyrinthine canyons, succumbing to the brutal heat and lack of water, or falling victim to accidents that seem almost too improbable to believe. The mysterious disappearances have only fueled the legend, suggesting that the mountains themselves might guard the treasure with a deadly and implacable force. Some even whisper that a curse hangs over the Lost Dutchman's gold mine, a curse that claims the lives of those who seek it out. But what is it that makes this story so enduring? After all, countless legends of lost treasure exist, each one more tantalizing than the last. Yet, the Lost Dutchman's gold mine continues to captivate the imagination, drawing people into the desert to search for a fortune that may or may not exist. What makes this treasure hunt different is the combination of history, mystery, and tragedy. The story of Jacob Waltz and the mine is steeped in ambiguity. The few clues that exist, maps, descriptions, and testimonies from those who claim to have known Waltz, are often contradictory and fragmented, making it nearly impossible to piece together a definitive path to the treasure. One of the most persistent aspects of the legend is the idea that the mine is hidden in a specific location within the Superstition Mountains, and that only those with special knowledge can find it. Many treasure hunters have scoured the mountains in search of the mine, and some have even uncovered old mining equipment, tools, and abandoned campfires, leading them to believe they are on the right track. Yet no one has ever discovered the gold itself, or even definitive proof that the mine exists at all. Among the most significant clues in the search for the Lost Dutchman's gold mine is the so-called Dutchman's Map, a document that some claim was drawn by Jacob Waltz himself. The map, which has never been definitively authenticated, purportedly shows the path to the hidden mine, but the details remain frustratingly unclear. Some researchers have suggested that the map is nothing more than a clever hoax, while others argue that it may contain a key to unlocking the mystery of the treasure's location. But even if the map were legitimate, it raises a critical question. Why didn't Waltz simply reveal the location of the mine before his death? Was he truly trying to keep it a secret, or was there another, more sinister reason for his silence? There are, of course, numerous theories about what happened to the treasure. Some believe that Waltz buried the gold himself, or that he hid it in a cave or shaft in the mountains, a place that remains undiscovered. Others have speculated that the mine was found and looted by other miners, or that Waltz's gold was simply never as abundant as the legend suggests. Some even entertain the idea that the mine was merely a figment of Waltz's imagination, a fanciful tale created to enrich his own life and that of those around him. As with many legends, the truth behind the Lost Dutchman's gold mine is elusive, and the mystery remains unsolved. Yet, the quest for the treasure continues, as each new generation of adventurers and treasure hunters seeks to unravel the riddle of the Superstition Mountains. Some claim to have come closer than anyone before them, while others wonder if the gold is nothing more than a myth, a story spun from the desperation of men seeking riches in a land that has offered them little. The allure of the lost Dutchman's gold mine lies not only in the promise of untold wealth, but also in the deeper mysteries it evokes. What drives people to risk everything in search of something that may not exist? And why does the legend persist, even as the years go by and the mountains remain silent? Is it the promise of riches, the thrill of the hunt, or something more? Something that transcends the tangible world of gold and treasure? The lost Dutchman's gold mine remains one of the most enduring and haunting mysteries of American folklore, a story that has captured the imagination of generations. And as long as the mountains stand, silent and watchful, the question will remain: what secrets are hidden in the jagged peaks of the Superstition Mountains? Perhaps one day someone will find the treasure, or perhaps it will remain lost forever, a riddle wrapped in time. Until then, the legend lives on, tantalizing those who dare to search. As the legend of the lost Dutchman's gold mine endures, it serves as a powerful reminder of humanity's insatiable desire to conquer the unknown. The Superstition Mountains, with their rugged terrain and harsh conditions, have become a testing ground for those seeking fortune and adventure. Yet, the mountains remain an unforgiving landscape, where dreams are dashed, and many searchers have been swallowed by the vast wilderness. This harsh reality only adds to the allure of the treasure. The sense of danger and the possibility that the mine may be hidden just beyond reach continues to fuel the imagination of those who brave the desert, urging them to take the risk, even as history shows the price of failure can be steep. For some, the mystery of the lost Dutchman's gold mine goes beyond the promise of riches. It becomes a quest for something deeper, a pursuit of the untold stories of those who came before. The idea that Waltz, a solitary figure, might have intentionally obscured the location of the mine for reasons unknown, creates a compelling narrative of secrecy and personal obsession. Why keep the secret? And who else knew it? Could there be more to Waltz's story than the treasure itself? The personal history of the Dutchman has sparked a fascination with the man, his motivations, and the puzzle of his life that may be just as intriguing as the treasure he supposedly discovered. As time has passed, the search for the lost Dutchman's gold mine has also become a rite of passage for adventurers and treasure hunters who seek to etch their names into the legacy of those who came before them. Each new generation brings a fresh wave of excitement, armed with modern tools, technology, and new interpretations of the clues. But despite these advances, the mountains remain as elusive as ever. Perhaps, as some suggest, the treasure was never meant to be found. Maybe the legend itself is the treasure, providing a sense of adventure, camaraderie, and purpose to those who search for it. Ultimately, the lost Dutchman's gold mine represents more than just a hunt for gold. It is a journey into the unknown, one that challenges the limits of human perseverance and imagination. The truth behind the mine may remain hidden forever, buried beneath the unrelenting desert sands, but the legend will continue to captivate hearts and minds. And so, the mystery of the lost Dutchman's gold mine lives on, an enduring story of riches, danger, and the tantalizing possibility that somewhere, deep within the Superstition Mountains, the treasure still waits to be discovered. As we shift from the rugged landscapes of the Superstition Mountains to the mist-covered hills of the English countryside, we encounter another enigma that has baffled historians, cryptographers, and treasure hunters alike for centuries. Hidden within the tranquil, picturesque grounds of Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire, England, lies a strange and cryptic inscription that has yet to be fully decoded. Known as the Shugborough Inscription, this mysterious set of symbols, etched into a monument on the estate, has prompted countless theories, from secret codes to hidden messages from ancient societies. But despite more than 250 years of scrutiny, the true meaning behind these symbols remains as elusive as ever. Shugborough Hall, an 18th-century mansion nestled in the heart of the English countryside, is the home of the inscription. The monument itself, which is located near the estate's ornamental gardens, consists of a marble replica of the Pembroke Etruscan sarcophagus, an ancient Roman burial chest. The sarcophagus, adorned with intricate carvings and symbolism, was a popular item for wealthy landowners and aristocrats to display in their gardens during the 18th century, a symbol of cultural sophistication and learned tastes. But it is the enigmatic inscription etched into the structure that has captured the imagination of many. At first glance, the inscription appears to be a simple series of letters and numbers. However, upon closer examination, the symbols seem to defy traditional interpretation. The sequence of letters, OUOSVAVV, followed by a string of numbers, has eluded decipherment for centuries. Despite efforts from historians, cryptographers, and even amateur code breakers, no one has been able to agree on a definitive meaning. The inscription does not appear to correspond to any known alphabet or cipher, and its placement on the sarcophagus only adds to its mystery. Why was it placed there? What purpose does it serve? And who, if anyone, was it meant for? The first recorded mention of the Shugborough inscription dates back to the 18th century, when the monument was created by Philip York, a former member of the aristocracy. York was an eccentric figure, with a keen interest in antiquities and obscure historical subjects. It is believed that York, possibly inspired by his fascination with classical art and symbolism, commissioned the monument to the ancient Etruscan sarcophagus and the curious inscription. But why choose this particular sequence of letters and numbers, and why leave it unresolved? Over the years, various theories have emerged about the meaning of the inscription. One of the most popular speculations is that it represents some form of cryptic code, perhaps a message left behind by an ancient or secretive society. Some have linked the inscription to the Knights Templar, an order of medieval knights whose mysterious activities and hidden treasures have fueled centuries of speculation and intrigue. Could the letters be part of a Templar code designed to protect a secret, or perhaps lead to hidden knowledge? The connection between the Templars and the Holy Grail, often depicted as the ultimate treasure, has long been a subject of fascination, and some believe that the inscription might be a clue to the Grail's location. Others have suggested that the inscription may be a cipher meant to direct someone to a secret location, perhaps the tomb of a powerful figure, or even a treasure chest buried somewhere within the grounds of Shugborough Hall itself. The sequence of letters, OUOSVAVV, could, some theorists propose, be part of a larger cryptographic puzzle, the key to which has yet to be discovered. The notion that the letters correspond to a hidden code waiting to be unlocked continues to spark intrigue among those who believe that there is more to Shugborough Hall than meets the eye. There are also those who propose that the inscription might be a memento mori, a symbol of death and the passage of time. In the context of the sarcophagus, this would not be entirely out of place. Some suggest that the letters represent the last words of a long-dead nobleman, or perhaps a reflection on the transient nature of life. The sarcophagus itself is said to have been inspired by classical Roman funerary practices, and it is possible that the inscription was meant as a meditation on mortality. But even this theory leaves the true meaning of the symbols unclear. Why such an obscure and cryptic message? Perhaps the most fascinating and enduring theory is that the inscription is part of a larger mystical or esoteric tradition, possibly linked to the Rosicrucians, an enigmatic secret society that was active during the 17th and 18th centuries. The Rosicrucians were known for their interest in alchemy, mysticism, and hidden knowledge, and their belief in esoteric symbols as a means of communicating deeper truths is well documented. Could the letters OUOSVAVV be a part of the society's cryptic language? a puzzle that holds the key to a profound philosophical or mystical revelation? The Rosicrucian influence on the intellectual and spiritual landscape of the time cannot be underestimated, and their fascination with hidden codes and symbolism makes them a compelling connection to the mystery of the Shugborough inscription. Another possibility, though equally speculative, suggests that the inscription could be connected to Freemasonry, an organization that has long been associated with secret symbols, hidden messages, and cryptic codes. Freemasons were known to use symbolic language to convey deeper meanings, often in the form of allegories or complex ciphers. Given the time period during which the monument was erected, at the height of the Enlightenment and a time when Freemasonry was at its peak in Europe, it is conceivable that the inscription could be a Masonic code, known only to those with the appropriate knowledge. Could this sequence of letters represent a secret shared by an exclusive group of intellectuals, the meaning of which remains locked away for all but a few? Despite the myriad theories that have been proposed over the years, the true meaning of the Shugborough inscription remains as elusive as ever. Scholars and cryptographers have spent countless hours attempting to decode the message, but no definitive answer has emerged. Some have argued that the inscription is an intentional riddle meant to remain unsolved, while others maintain that it was simply a meaningless decoration added by York for aesthetic purposes. Yet the very fact that the inscription exists, with its strange and enigmatic symbols, suggests that there is more to the story than meets the eye. The mystery of the Shugborough inscription raises profound questions about the nature of history, knowledge, and the secrets that might lie hidden in plain sight. What purpose did this cryptic message serve, and why has it endured for so long? Was it the work of a secret society, a scholar with an obsession for hidden truths, or a simple piece of decoration that happened to spark an enduring mystery? And perhaps the most intriguing question of all, what, if anything, does it reveal about the nature of the human desire to leave something behind, something that might survive the ravages of time, awaiting discovery? As we look back on the many theories and speculations that have been offered over the centuries, it's clear that the mystery of the Shugborough inscription is far from over. It is a puzzle that continues to capture the imagination, inviting new generations of researchers, adventurers, and mystery lovers to delve deeper into its meaning. Perhaps, in the future, we will finally uncover the truth behind these strange letters and numbers. But for now, the inscription remains an enduring reminder that some mysteries are meant to endure, mysterious, puzzling, and ultimately unsolved. As we delve deeper into the enigma of the Shugborough inscription, it becomes clear that its significance transcends mere historical curiosity. The fact that it has remained unsolved for over 2 centuries only adds to its allure, transforming it into an intellectual treasure hunt for anyone willing to engage with its mystery. Its continued presence at Shugborough Hall, seemingly untouched by time, acts as a powerful symbol of human ingenuity and the unyielding quest for knowledge. In a world where information is increasingly accessible, the inscription serves as a rare reminder of the boundaries that still exist in our understanding of the past. Adding to the intrigue is the notion that the Shugborough inscription may have been deliberately left unresolved. Could it have been the intention of its creator, Philip York, to spark a mystery that would outlast his own life and become an enduring puzzle for future generations? The strategic placement of the inscription, nestled within the gardens of Shugborough Hall, suggests that it was meant to be discovered and pondered by those who walked the estate. Its enigmatic nature forces us to confront the limitations of our historical knowledge and challenges the assumption that every mystery has an answer waiting to be found. Furthermore, the inscription seems to tap into something deep within the human psyche, the allure of the unknown and the seductive pull of secrecy. Over the centuries, humankind has been drawn to hidden knowledge, secret codes, and cryptic symbols. Whether it's the pursuit of lost treasure, ancient wisdom, or the uncovering of forbidden truths, the Shugborough inscription plays into these age-old desires. It reminds us that no matter how much we learn, there will always be mysteries that elude us, waiting for someone to unlock their secrets. If not today, perhaps tomorrow. Perhaps the most enduring aspect of the Shugborough inscription's mystery is its ability to inspire curiosity across multiple generations. From amateur code breakers to professional historians, the inscription has been the subject of countless investigations, each one offering a new theory, a new interpretation, or a new approach. This perpetual cycle of speculation ensures that the mystery remains alive, as each attempt to decode the inscription brings us closer to understanding not just the message, but the deeper questions it raises about our relationship with history, knowledge, and the pursuit of truth.